Tom Hankins,
Here.
Megan Miller, Greg Schneider.
Present.
Everyone is present except Megan Miller.
Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
I will second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, can I get an approval of the minutes, please?
So moved.
I will second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. That brings us to item 2A, which is a presentation on Literacy for Life, which is a program going on here in this area. It's a great opportunity for families and for youth and for children. And we have Jessica Austin, who's the Director of Early Brain Development with the State Line Community Foundation and the head of Literacy for Life. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to share what we've been working on and what's yet to come. I am Jessica Austin, Director of Early Brain Development with the Literacy for Life program, a program of the State Line Community Foundation. I'm a lifelong Beloiter and a fourth-generation graduate of Beloit Memorial. I care deeply about the success of our community and the district. Our mission at Literacy for Life is to ensure that every child in Rock County is prepared to succeed upon entering kindergarten, fostering their readiness through dedicated parent support, highlighting how early investments in children impact school readiness, behavior, attendance, and long-term academic success. Our program is ultimately preparing students to be the best possible versions of themselves by the time they get to you. So today we're going to go over the importance of early childhood learning, how Literacy for Life supports families, the basics and basics insights, data and analytics on early learning impacts, a community coming together, and we'll have a brief moment for closing questions, comments, or ideas, if any arise. My hopes are that you leave here today with a knowledge on what Literacy for Life does, how early learning investments better our community and our school district. So by a brief show of hands, who currently has a child under the age of 5? Who has a child who once was under the age of 5? Who has interacted with young children in their personal or professional lives? I got you all. This is something that impacts all of us. You know firsthand the joys and the challenges of early learning. I'm excited to connect deeper how we can help make those challenges feel not so big and the joys feel even greater. 80 to 85% of brain development happens by the age of 3. Learning doesn't start at school.
Press
It
star
starts
6 to unmute.
at birth and even before. Children who enter kindergarten behind often stay behind, impacting reading and math scores, graduation rates, and future economic success. The district benefits from the early investments, fewer intervention needs, higher engagement from families, and strong long-term student success. 1 million neural connections per second form in the first few years of life. This is more than any other time in a person's life. Children learn best through responsive interactions, talking, singing, playing, and exploring. This helps determine future literacy skills. Early exposure to math concepts and problem solving is just as crucial as literacy. We are going to watch a short video on what is happening during those first few years of life. Uh-oh.
I don't see it on my way.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. We were going to watch it. It's through the Center for the Developing Child. It talks about the foundation and how important the foundation is in a young child's life. And through the process of those synapses and connections, if we don't continue to grow and flourish that, we lose it. So it's a use it or lose it mindset. So you can advance. Professor Heckman found that early nurturing learning experiences and physical health from children ages 0 to 5 greatly impact success or failure in society. The most economically efficient time to develop skills and social abilities is in the very early years when development support is most effective. Today's challenges are real. Record rates of high school dropouts, a lack of college graduates, increasing rates of obesity and chronic diseases, rising crime, and a growing underclass. Professor Heckman's work proves that prevention through early childhood development is more life and cost-effective than remediation. It's time to invest in upstream solutions for future generations while we continue to address today's problems. How Literacy for Life supports Rock County. We equip parents with tips, strategies, and tools to create everyday learning moments through everyday routines, so they feel confident in being their child's first, best, and most important teacher. Our approach is simple: making learning happen in daily routines, going to the grocery store, doctor's office, at-home playtime, while cooking, doing laundry, and dishes. We reach parents where they are, through service organizations, hospitals, libraries, schools, and community partners. We believe in rebuilding a community culture of supporting young families. Education starts in relationships. One of our biggest resources that we share is throughout the community is basics. The basics are 5 simple yet powerful practices grounded in science. The basics help families incorporate the principles into daily life, so learning doesn't feel like extra work. The basics are research-backed principles that support all areas of child development: emotional security, language and literacy, early math concepts, physical and cognitive development, comprehension, curiosity, and imagination. All aligns with school readiness expectations. Basics Insights is a text messaging resource of the basics. It is free to all Rock County families and partners who share it. This is made possible through generous donors who care deeply about our community and its success. Each Monday, registered families receive an age-specific, research-based fact. Every Wednesday, families receive an activity that aligns with that Monday message to be able to apply what an activity looks like to support that developmental tip. The activities do not require any fancy toys or additional materials. It uses common things that families have, but most of them are through the moments that families are already spending with their child through communication. Basics Insights is proven to increase engagement, confidence, and positive interactions between caregivers and their children. Messages are available in English, Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, and Arabic. Families are invited to complete a series of surveys to gauge learning and engagement. We are going to dig into each of the 5 principles. These are actual messages registered families receive. We will first dig in to maximize love, manage stress. Our Monday fact: life with a toddler is stressful. Having ways to manage stress makes it easier to respond calmly when your child tests your patience. You both benefit when you take care of yourself. The Wednesday Try This message: take some time to let go of stress. Close your eyes, sit comfortably, let your mind settle. Take slow, deep breaths, filling up your belly. Silently count your breaths or repeat calming words like peace. Notice your feelings, but don't judge them. How does that make you feel? How it supports school readiness. A calm and responsive parent helps children feel secure, which builds confidence and emotional regulation. In kindergarten, children need to manage emotions, follow directions, and adapt to new situations, skills that develop when they experience consistent, patient interactions at home. Next is Talk, Sing, and Point. Monday fact: singing brings children joy. It also teaches them about patterns and language. Wednesday Try This: when you sing, add in hand or body motions. This makes the songs extra fun and gives your child one more thing to remember. Try, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. How this supports school readiness. Songs naturally introduce patterns, rhythm, and new vocabulary, strengthening early literacy skills. Kindergartners need strong listening and language abilities to follow instruction, engage in conversation, and develop reading readiness. Next is count, group, and compare. Our Monday fact: songs and games with counting are great ways to introduce numbers to your baby. Songs that count a baby's fingers or toes are a perfect place to start. In addition, it teaches numbers. They help babies become more aware of their bodies. The Wednesday try this: sing counting songs or play counting games with your child. Try classic songs and rhymes like 1 potato, 2 potato, 5 little monkeys, or 10 little toes, or simply count and wiggle your baby's fingers and toes. Most importantly, have fun. How this supports school readiness: engaging in counting songs introduces basic math concepts in a fun and natural way. Understanding numbers and quantity relationships prepares children for kindergarten math, while body awareness supports coordination and fine motor skill development. Next, we have explore through movement and play. Our Monday fact: little ones have lots of energy. They need at least an hour to move and get their wiggles out every day. Help your child challenge themselves on the playground or at home. Our Wednesday try this: time how long your child can balance on one foot. Then have them switch feet and how long they can keep their balance on the other foot. Turn it into a game and see if they can break their own records. How this supports school readiness: regular movement supports brain development, helps children build coordination, and enhances their ability to focus in the classroom. Physical activity also promotes self-regulation, an essential skill for sitting still and following directions in kindergarten. Finally, we have read and discuss stories. Our Monday fact: toddlers learn through repetition. Your child may have a favorite story that they like to read over and over. After reading it many times, they remember the story and the words. The Wednesday try this: when reading your child's favorite book, invite them to do the storytelling. Let them hold the book and turn the pages. Be a good listener as they tell their version of the story. Ask them questions about the pictures. Do this anywhere, even on the bus or at the laundromat. How this supports school readiness: repeated reading helps children recognize words, understand story structure, and develop comprehension skills. This strengthens their ability to recall information, an essential component for early learning that sets the stage for independent reading in school. The Basics program provides a comprehensive framework for organizations to support early learning in their communities. This includes workshop templates, group activities, and presentation to engage families. Different templates are available to present to just caregivers and with their children. Each partner has access to their own dashboard where organizations can print flyers in multiple language or access digital links to share with families for Basics Insight signups. I customize alignment for the Basics principles utilizing family-friendly giveaways such as bubbles, frisbee, glow sticks, poppets to demonstrate simple, fun ways to create learning moments. We encourage our partners to share the basics at tabling events, community gatherings, and family-focused programs to encourage more caregivers to receive these valuable resources. Currently, we have over 800 families that have signed up for Basics Insights throughout Rock County. Each Basics partner has their own dashboard to be able to track their organization's metrics that also compile into our county metrics. The school district has their own dashboard and currently is at 73 families signed up for Basics Insights between the district, Even Start, and SAPAR. Beyond knowing the impact your organization is making, it also tracks the information of the families, their language, zip code, etc. Then families complete surveys upon enrollment and at regular intervals after. These metrics are shared quarterly by the Basics and can be requested per organization once you reach 100 signed up families. We are currently working to incentivize the surveys to get even better data. Every industry plays a role in supporting early learning. We cannot depend on 4K and kindergarten alone to solve our early learning gaps. Every sector plays a role. How do we fill parents with easy-to-digest information to build their confidence to create easy, impactful learning opportunities that happen everywhere? Service providers, businesses, healthcare, and faith communities all influence early learning environments. Through our community, families should feel informed, equipped, and supported. Literacy for Life works to build up each of these sectors to play their part in bringing the community together for our youngest residents and our future. I'm excited to announce the launch of Read, Talk, Play Every Day, a collaborative between Literacy for Life and Janesville Early Literacy to unite Rock County families and organizations in promoting early learning from birth to age 5. This is a collective impact model. Key components of what we are building out to become available late spring to early summer. First is through our toolkit. We've successfully convened all birthing hospitals in Rock County, SSM, Mercy, and Beloit Health System, to align a toolkit that families receive upon the birth of their child. Giving families these tools upon birth to reinforce their learning starts today. They will be given 2 board books, 1 family poem book with tips and try this activities, our resource book, and a toy that will grow with the child from birth through age 5. The booklet will be distributed through the toolkit and also available for distribution throughout the community. It will provide families with resources and why it is so important to start now, developmental tips and activities, as well as quick QR links to take you to the website and basic signups. We are also producing 12 videos. 1 is a welcome video to families in the hospital, welcoming their addition to the community and providing quick information on Read, Talk, Play Every Day. 2 PSAs explaining the importance of giving your child your time and attention in the early years, and 9 short how-to videos aligned with the metrics of the toolkit. Finally, we have our website. All of these pieces draw back to our website. It is our hub of resources. It will be deeper into developmental milestones. Videos will be housed under corresponding age groups and pause and learn stations. Community members and organizations will be able to click and print resources and an opportunity to highlight all of the free and low-cost events happening in the county for families with young children. Organizations will be able to post on the community calendar that they're hosting, bringing our community even more together. Also, this will give us another way for tracking outreach success as well as where our needs are at in our community. By aligning schools, hospitals, and community partners, we are creating a strong early learning foundation for Rock County's youngest residents. Everyday moments become powerful learning opportunities, ensuring that children are arriving to kindergarten ready to succeed. Finally, as co-chair of Thrive by 5, Rock County's coalition, in partnership with Rock County Public Health, we are working to unify our support systems, resources, and language across the county to ensure every child from prenatal to age 5 has that foundation to thrive. We are working to align service providers who work with young children, breaking down the silos, and creating a cohesive early childhood support system. Meeting monthly to collaborate, share resources, and build a streamlined system that makes accessing support quick and easy for families and organizations. We are developing a centralized resource hub so organizations can effectively connect those families to the services they need when they need them. We are consistently expanding our coalition membership to ensure all school districts are engaged, working together to create a stronger, more connected early learning community. By bringing schools, healthcare providers, nonprofits, and service organizations together, we are ensuring that Rock County families have consistent, accessible, and effective support, giving every child that best possible start. So everything we have discussed today ties back to one key truth. Strong early childhood investments lead to improved K-12 outcomes. By engaging all parts of our community's ecosystem, we are working to ensure our youngest residents start life with the support they need to thrive in school and beyond. When we invest early, we see fewer interventions needed later, improved school academics, stronger success, and children are better prepared to become engaged, contributing members of our community. Thank you for your time and for the work you do to support Beloit's children and families. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you today and welcome any thoughts, questions, or comments.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Board Member Hankins.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Jessica, I just want to say I applaud your efforts. and having known that you and Dean Flanagan worked on these things speaks volumes. But anyways, my question to you is 0 to 3, and I understand that. What I've learned since my time in the board is, and Mr. Bosco, correct me if I'm wrong, leapfrog, and are they coordinated together? So a child analogy to a football team from this to this to, are they learning the same things, and are they going to be graded? And this dovetails into reading scores on 3rd and 4th grade. Do we pass them on or not? Are we all aligned together? Thank you.
Yes, there is alignment. So the basics is aligned with the early Head Start outcomes, which is a broad-based alignment that flows into Frog Street. So early childhood literacy looks different than once you're sitting, reading, pointing, breaking down sounds. It is a much bigger, broader piece that the correlation ties a little bit differently, but it is a continuum that will flow well. And then hopefully into Act 20, once we have those metrics of phonics and pieces, we can work to bring that back to the community to build up where those gaps are and how we can help.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay.
Jessica, thank you. I am so impressed. I know what you guys have been doing. I've been kind of on the fringes looking in, but this is so gratifying. It's got to be gratifying, and I wish this was available when my kids were young. So anyway, on another note, Mrs. Beavers, could you forward that presentation to the entire board? It's not on the. Is that okay? Or can you? Great. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Okay, Dr. Garrison.
Sure. So we have had numerous conversations with, of course, Leaders for Life, and it pertains to some of the work that they do here in the community. Of course, I'd like to thank the organization for all of the work that they do across, one can argue, state line, community, period. I also know that as a school district, we've agreed to do certain things to help support this conversation, whether it be, putting information into registration information packets. Mrs. Beavers and her team has worked real closely with that conversation over the course of a few years here now. And so I just want to make sure people know that we are doing the best we can to partner with this organization, and of course make sure that our kids across the community have what they need, whether they come into the school district Beloit or a different place of choice. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so again, Jessica, thank you so very much for your presentation. And again, this is another example of where people in the community are working together, giving of their time, their efforts, and their resources, and investing it in the communities in which we live in order to make those communities much better. Thank you very much. Okay. That brings us to item 2B, new course proposals, computer science for innovators and makers. Mr. Stenrus.
Thank you, Board Member Schneider, and welcome other board members. Jeff Stenrus, Director of CTE and Alternative Education, and also part of the middle school scheduling team. So what I'm proposing for you tonight is a new course for the middle school. It is Computer Science for Innovators and Makers. It is a Project Lead the Way course. This is new course. It is part of our dealings to expand our middle school electives. So 8th grade sequence and 7th grade sequence are unique, and there are no repetitions of classes. So we're pairing classes that are in 7th grade format and classes that are in 8th grade format. It adds another Project Lead the Way pre-engineering course to our options for them. It meets the demand of computer science and programming, which leads into robotics and CNC to the high school level. So we have it as it's a building block or an exposure stepping stone to any kind of coding programming that might be at an upper level. It utilizes the Project Lead the Way curriculum. So we would utilize the training and the curriculum from Project Lead the Way. And again, it grows into our engineering and or manufacturing pathway because we also have principles of engineering at the high school level. And again, it aligns with our robotics, which is a course that was proposed last year and started up this year and is growing, and our CNC courses at the high school. So this is designed to empower students to thrive in an evolving world. It is, again, a computer science course, but it really talks about using microcontrollers, doing authentic tasks. So it isn't just coding as we might have done Pascal and all the other languages along the way. This really is coding to get it to do something, to solve a problem. And in fact, at the end of the course, they have to do one of three things. They are design a wearable safety device that someone might use in a physical activity, have an engaging art installation to improve a community space, or a useful mechanical dispenser for a person or an animal who needs assistance in retrieving an object. So again, they have them do computer science for an actual task or purpose, not just to code and get an output of, it gives you the number 24. It aligns with college and career readiness standards, aligns with language arts standards for grades 6 through 8, follows the standards for technological and engineering literacy, aligns with the K-12 computer science framework, as well as the next generation science standards. So it is completely aligned. It is a Project Lead the Way course. With this, we would have teachers that would go to Project Lead the Way training, take a course with that so that they have access to the curriculum and can follow along with that. And we already are a Project Lead the Way Gateway Middle School for both Fruzen and Aldrich. So this is just opening up one more avenue for them.
Thank you. Any questions at all? Anybody? Dr. Garrison, any thoughts?
Project Lead the Way for me is a part of this overall growth of our program. One of the things that I think we've done a very good job in this area is making sure that our kids have opportunities, and coding is one of them, right? And I think for me, I can just say that I know I played around a little bit with that when I was growing up. And now it's changed to a lot of different things. And so this is just one area that I think this could touch. One could argue when we're talking about computer science, this could grow into other courses as well. And so this is a stepping stone for, if you ask me, a stepping stone in the right direction for some of our course offerings in this area. And I believe it would be beneficial for our students.
Okay. Again, this is just another great example of thinking outside of the box, doing things in a creative way to apply the skills that all of our students need to learn in a way that's good, involves them in their future and their future planning. I think it's a great program to go. And I know computer science, I'm sure, has gone a long way from when I started with Fortran 4. Where you wrote out your program by hand, sat down and punched out the computer cards to be read into the computers. So I just think that, this is a great way to apply it, the standards that we have and the skills that our students are learning. Dr. Garrison, is this up for a vote to move forward to the board?
This is our first presentation. We will bring it back next month, and then at that point, ask for it to be moved to the full board for approval at that time.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Yep.
Mr. Stenrus, great program. I like this.
Thank you.
Having worked in manufacturing, this is amazing. So, do you have any idea how many students first year or so would be involved, or from what you know right now?
I'm not exactly sure of the numbers. What we have done is we have aligned. So this is part of a grand scheme of ours.
Right.
We have 2 sets of classes, so 4 total at 7th grade for Project Lead the Way, and this would also then add in. We would have 4 at the 8th grade. Right now, if we follow current numbers, we have I think 2 sections of each of these, so it would be roughly 60 kids at each school that would be participating in this.
That's awesome. That'd be a great start. Thank you.
And I'm not going to take credit for the one suggesting this. This is some of my colleagues at this level, but also my tech ed Project Lead the Way teachers at the middle school level said they feel that this is an appropriate course and it lines up with our high school. So a lot of great minds were a part of planning this.
That's when it works best. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 2C, Act 20 and promotion policy. Mrs. Beavers.
I can kick us off while we pull up the presentation. Is that okay? So we know that Act 20 has legislation across the state. We know that this opportunity for all of the districts in the state of Wisconsin is a new opportunity. One of the things that we do know is that this does comes with some, of course, some fiscal responsibilities in this space, as well as some overall standards that we have to try to cover. And so we do know, as I level set the conversation just a little bit, that the state has asked us to, of course, adopt certain opportunities in Act 20. And today we'll hear a little bit about some of those opportunities, as well as the policy that we have to bring to the board. And so under my direction, I did ask for this to start here, so you all can hear this information naturally, and so that we could, make sure that the Teaching and Learning Equity Committee could see the policy as it stands. The state does have a policy that it's asking everybody to go through and look at. We are in alignment. Let me be quiet. I can turn it over to Missy. She can go through all this information as well.
You're fine.
But this policy does align to what the state is asking us to look at, and we believe it'll be a good starter conversation for a TLE to see if you have any feedback before we move it over to the policy committee for approval. Thank you.
And pupil services, TLE and pupil.
Pupil service and TLE.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, good evening. Missy Beavers. I'm here with Tony Bosco and Eric Weir supporting me. Like Dr. Garrison said, we're here to solicit feedback from the committee members on the recommended policy revisions that we will be moving forward to policy in March. So just a little background. The DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, aims for all Wisconsin students to be proficient readers by the end of third grade. Wisconsin Act 20 introduces comprehensive changes to early literacy instruction, assessment, and personal reading plans to accelerate reading achievement. Under the law, schools must consider a student's reading ability when promoting from third to fourth grade. If a student is promoted without meeting reading expectations, the school must provide continued support to help them achieve reading proficiency. Research shows that reading proficiency by the end of third grade predicts future success in academics, employment, and social skills, especially for students experiencing poverty. However, retention carries risks, including lower academic progress, emotional distress, and a higher likelihood of not completing high school. DPI encourages individualized, student-centered promotion decisions made in collaboration with families, prioritizing continued reading support over retention. And so part of this Act 20 is a requirement of school boards to adopt a third to fourth grade promotion policy that includes, at a minimum, what's required in statute. And so this is truly a cross-departmental effort in not only implementing Act 20, but revising this policy. And what is attached is the first round of revisions, and what you'll see there is we took, previously there was a promotion and retention policy, and then there was a rule, which was the procedures and the guiding steps. And so we collapsed the rule. We're recommending collapsing the rule and including it all in one policy, and you'll specifically see on the top of the second page the third to fourth grade promotion requirements. And so what we added, and DPI has put out model guidance, which we have used to help us guide this revision. So I'm just going to read exactly what we added. A student that has been identified as below the 25th percentile in reading achievement as measured by the approved state screener must demonstrate adequate progress made towards an established personal reading plan in compliance with Wisconsin Act 20. For any student who has not successfully completed or made adequate progress towards their personal reading plan by the end of third grade, the district and school will initiate a comprehensive process to determine whether the student will be promoted to fourth grade. This process will take into account all relevant factors contributing to the student's progress and will explore alternatives to retention that support the student in achieving grade level reading proficiency. The details of this process will be outlined in the district's eMLSS guidebook. And then the second attachment that you'll see is the guidance that we've created, again, really driven by the DPI guidance that will be added to our district's EMLSS guide, and this is literally walking through guidance as to promotion or retention based on the statute. That's all we have.
Any
Or
questions?
we're looking for input from
Yep.
you guys.
Okay, any questions, comments? Board Member Hankins?
Just a comment. As I read through this Sunday, I guess it was, I'm pleasantly surprised that we are adhering to stricter standards as I see it, and not passing forward students that may or may not be, that it's up to someone to evaluate that, and a nice team that can evaluate that. I applaud your efforts, and I will support it all the way through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I know Mr. Bosco is there, and I'm not sure if you had anything you want to add to that. Mr. Weir.
I think it's a beautiful kind of segue from the Literacy for Life presentation that we saw earlier, and the value that this community is placing on literacy top to bottom, bottom to top. The statute is very clear about the parameters around promotion. And when students have been flagged below the 25th percentile and they have a personalized reading plan, it is, as Mr. Hankins said, Board Member Hankins, that team's responsibility really to make sure that that student is making progress as they come through that plan and being, very kind of almost scientific in how we address the needs of each individual reader based on some of the data that we're getting from Ames Web and from the screeners and diagnostics that we're doing. So this policy really does highlight the effort, the total effort throughout all layers of the system at the elementary and even within the community to make sure that our students are ready at that third grade level to read at grade level. So we think this meshes well, and DPI, of course, said we had to have this policy in place by July 1st of this year, so.
I would just add that the guidance piece that we worked on then too is going to be a really great addition to our equitable multi-level systems to support guide for our schools, because as you were able to see, it really does break down a very scripted process to allow our collaborative teams in the buildings to have those robust conversations about the students and what levels they're achieving at or where skills may still be lagging, and work to really pinpoint and target what is continued to maybe needed to allow them to continue to grow.
Thank you. A couple of things. One, after reading through Act 20 and some of the other supplemental
For
things.
fun.
Yeah. It took a little while because, yeah, put me to sleep at night. So. But I think you've done a great job incorporating what's being required and asked for there into this policy to do that. A couple of questions. One, at the bottom of the first section, it says, a principal shall have the authority to place a student within the school based on his or her determination. Question is, placed in which fashion? Is that into grade level, into a classroom, into a service that's there? Or is that placed into a building itself?
It would be grade level.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe through EMLSS also support classes, are there? Just to add to that, sorry, there are, through the EMLSS, ultimately the principal is the lead learner in the building. And so an EMLSS team is working kind of under their direction. And so the principal being able to place students in particular interventions or different things that they may need, I think this also speaks to that. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing is I noticed when we look at Rule 1, which is the section that did have the credit requirements at the high school for specific grade level, and those have been removed at this time. I'm assuming that's partially because it's really, they have to have X number of credits at graduation to graduate. But do you know at the high school, are there any privileges or awards that they get based on the grade level that they're in?
No, we've gone away, we haven't been using the credits for grade level for years, so you're exactly right.
Okay.
When a new student comes in, we place them based on their age and the last grade they completed in their previous school, and like you just said, it's credits to graduation. So you might be a senior with 12 credits, you're gonna stay a senior until you get 26.
Right, okay.
I just have one more thing to add that I forgot. The reason why we decided to create the guiding document is because Act 20 is so new. There are a ton of nuances and changes being made that we just thought at this point in time, it's most important to pull that out because we're going to be making changes as the state works through this. I mean, we are just in our first round of screeners and probably learned so much already that we can only imagine. Tony goes up to, or collaborates with CISA 6, and they're always changing what they said from one week to the next. So I just wanted to provide some justification as to why we pulled the guidance out.
Great. Any other thoughts, Mr. Hankin?
Yeah, it's more of a comment, it's just a comment. I think this is a perfect blend of qualitative and quantitative information on a said student. It's hands-on, but yet you have, to me, it's better direction. So you have more to work with on what you're going to do rather than being in a gray area on what you're going to do with that said person. Am I correct in saying that?
I think that's a great way to characterize that, Board Member Hankins, the idea that we're looking at multiple data points for students and that it is a holistic picture of where the student is at, a whole team wrapped around that student. I think it is very qualitative and quantitative. I think that's a great way to frame that.
Well, I wasn't looking for that, but thank you. I think that's perfect.
Great, well, thank you so very much for the presentation, for all your hard work, and looking forward to hearing the updates as they come through, so thank you. Okay, that brings us to item 3A, which is next meeting date will be Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, meeting at 5 o'clock. Is there anything else? That brings us to item 3B, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I will second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Good evening. Glad we're inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may need that pretty soon. Like it's-
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, February 18th regular board meeting. Ms. Schopp, may we please get a roll call?
Yes. Greg Schneider,
Present.
Amy Levy,
Here.
Brian Nichols,
Here.
Brian Anderson,
Here?
Tom Hankins,
Here.
Megan Miller, and Tia Johnson.
Here.
All members are present except Megan Miller.
I would like to request an approval of the agenda with the removal of items 7B, C, and D.
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Nichols,
Second?
seconded by Treasurer Anderson. All in favor?
I'm sorry, is there any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wondering the reason for the removal of those sets of minutes.
I did not see them, or Mr. Anderson did not see them attached. Were they attached on your link?
Yeah, I have them. Okay, thank you.
Maybe something with reposting.
Oh, maybe. Oh, but now, due to the fact that some board members have had access to them and some of us have not, we'll just postpone them or bring them back next time. So the motion is to remove 7B, C, and D, the minutes from the meetings. Motion by Nichols and seconded by Anderson. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to our Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight we have Principal Malat and Vice Principal Klett to introduce one of their courageous Converse Cougars.
This is Bradley. Let Principal Malata and I join him too. So it's going to be a team effort.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice job, Bradley.
Thank you so much, Bradley, for helping us out tonight and leading the way. And I love the team effort that is the school district of Beloit Way, and we really appreciate it. Next, we have upcoming events and announcements. Board Clerk Tom Hankins.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Good evening. The announcements for Tuesday, February 18th include an informational session regarding the referendum this Thursday, February 20th at the Beloit Public Library at 10:30 a.m. in their community room. The session will last about an hour or so. On Sunday, February 23rd, 2025, from 2 to 4, there will be a hot, chili, cool jazz session. Stop out for some hot chili on a cold day and listen to some cool jazz from our high school jazz students. There will be an early childhood screening for 3 and 4-year-old children not enrolled in school. Please call to schedule an appointment at 608-361-4020. Appointments will be held on Wednesday, February 26th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Elementary principals will be at Blender Cafe on Wednesday, February 26th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. to continue the monthly coffee connections. Stop out for some coffee and conversate with our elementary principals. There will be an evening referendum session at The Rock on February 27th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. If you're interested, you can always stay for dinner, and it's also bingo night. My daughter's not working, so don't worry about it. Our future board meeting dates include Business Operations and Finance meeting at 5 p.m., followed by the regular board meeting at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 4th. Policy Committee meeting on Wednesday, March 5th at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, and this ends the announcement for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hankins. Next, we have our board recognitions. Our first recognition tonight is the Imagine Math students at Converse School. Tonight, I have asked TLE chairperson to assist with the awards, and the purpose of this is to recognize, honor staff and students, community members, and partners for their outstanding achievements, goals, or service. Mr. Schneider.
Okay, this evening I would like to honor and congratulate the Converse students in grades 3 through 5 who participated in the Imagine Math contest that began in September. So if you're from there, if you want to come on over and join me.
All right, Bradley's back.
He's back, all right. Good. So, students earn points for passing math lessons and then have the opportunity to donate those points to a local charity. The fall charity partner was designated as the Wealthy Environmental Center. The overall goal was to raise $2,000 to help support the programming of the center provides to the district students. Of that $2,000, the students at Converse donated $1,116. Congratulations. Additionally, Converse had 2 fourth-grade classrooms that were nationally recognized for participating in the Do the Math Support a Veteran contest. So congratulations to those 2 fourth-grade classrooms. Now, Imagine Math contests are a way to really encourage students to build their skills early and build a habit of using the program. When students pass Imagine Math lessons, there is a high positive impact on increasing MAP scores for their students that year and into the future. So again, congratulations to all the students in Converse grades 3 through 5. Congratulations. Thank you.
Bradley was our student who donated the most think points, so he donated the highest dollar amount for Converse. So he has completed over 150 lessons on his own. The goal for Imagine Math users in grades 3 through 5 is to complete 30 lessons by the end of the year, and he has completed over 150 at this point in the school year. So way to go, Bradley.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Our next recognition tonight goes to the middle school spelling bee contest winners. Mr. Schneider.
Okay. So on January 16th, 19 students participated in the district's middle school spelling bee as part of the National Scripps Spelling Bee contest. We're very proud of all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders for their courage and willingness to do their best. We had 2 finalists move on to represent the school district of Beloit in the regional competition. Congratulations to Darby O'Brien from Aldrich and Cassidy Barkiza from Fruzen. Are they here this evening? No, okay, we do have certificates for them. Additionally, Cassidy recently participated in the regional contest, which qualified her for the statewide competition, which will be held on March 29th at the Mitby Theater in Madison College. Best of luck, Cassidy. Again, congratulations to everybody who participated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Next up, we have public comment. Mrs. Shope, do we have any public comments tonight?
We do. We have 2.
Please
They're
go
both in the room.
Please go ahead. I'm sorry. The members of the public are welcome to attend all open meetings of the Board of Education. Individuals attending board meetings are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner that models appropriate behavior for our students. Individuals wishing to comment are expected to comply with the norms found on the back of your comment cards and in Board Policy 187, Public Participation at Board Meetings. We ask that each of you contribute to maintaining a respectful and orderly meeting and prevent discussing confidential matters in a public forum by following these norms for public comments during board meetings. Thank you for your participation and courtesy.
First, excuse me, first I have Melissa.
Good evening. Melissa Rohrbeck, Beloit Education Association co-president. Good evening, Dr. Garrison and board members. The Beloit Education Association Representative Assembly unanimously supports the 3-year, $40 million operational referendum that our schools so desperately need. This will give us the funding required to maintain our high-quality educational programs, prevent more staffing cuts, maintain class sizes, add in more behavioral support positions, and compensate teachers, paras, and secretaries with raises that are at or even above inflation. We need the community to vote yes on April 1st. This referendum is vitally important for our district to avoid at least a $6 million deficit in the first year and even more in the years following. This is not sustainable. Our district has continued to function as enrollment has decreased the amount of funding the district has received due to the state's broken school funding formula. It has continued to function. However, we cannot continue down this path. The district is looking at very drastic decisions with buildings, programming, and staffing should the referendum fail. Beloit cannot afford to let this happen. There are so many positive things happening on a day-to-day basis in this school district. To mention just a few, increases in academic achievement, CTE program at the high school, AP classes offerings at the high school, choir club being run at both middle schools, student council, yearbook club, National Junior Honor Society at Aldridge, MEO, Just Say No, Girls on the Run, just to name a few at the elementary level. Sports at all levels, music programs, orchestra, band, choir. And there are many, many more. We need the referendum to pass in order to continue these great programs as well as so many others. These programs keep our students engaged along with their academic opportunities. Without this referendum, there is a very good chance that these opportunities would have to be cut. To the community, you have spoken about wanting to see improvements made with behavior and discipline in the schools. Not passing the referendum would in fact probably make this problem worse. Not passing the referendum will most likely result in fewer teachers, fewer administrators, not to mention fewer student services personnel who are on front lines with student behavior every day. To the board and Dr. Garrison, we support your efforts in this referendum. Please remember, the more specific you can be about where money has already been cut, where money is going to go if the referendum passes, and what is at risk of being cut if the referendum fails, the better. The students of Beloit deserve nothing but the best. We need to work together for this to happen. Please vote yes on Tuesday, April 1st to support our Beloit schools. Sincerely, Melissa Rohrbeck, James Hoy, BEA co-presidents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schultz.
Next, I have Carol, and she has two people, Frank and Tom, who have yielded 3 minutes for her.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm sure you know who I am. But I'm here today to talk about a totally different concern, so I'll give you something else to think about. I'm really here because of my concern regarding the DLI report that the board received at the last meeting. Unfortunately, the video got interrupted and I wasn't able to see the presentation, but I've thoroughly read and reviewed the document. I'm in no way opposed to DLI programming, and I know that we have a growing Hispanic population that creates needs for programs that address language acquisition. However, I was deeply disappointed in this report, as I don't believe it contained much of the critical information needed to truly evaluate the program and make decisions, informed decisions about its future. First, I didn't really see much in the way of quality data. I was amazed at both how little data there was and how it was interpreted. The only assessment data provided that I could find was last year's state data, the forward and access. And I believe that is too little data to be able to make judgments about the efficacy of the program. In addition, the data provided wasn't really disaggregated properly. They concluded that the data showed that academic growth for DLI students was on par with the district as a whole, but that conclusion appears to be based on schools and not programs. We don't have DLI schools versus non-DLI schools. We have DLI programs housed in some of our DLI schools. We have lots of students in DLI schools who are not in DLI programming. Therefore, the correct groups were not really compared. They also used the data to claim that a higher percentage of English language learners in DLI schools were performing better on both forward and access assessments than the English language learners in the non-DLI schools. Yet there was a graph on page 9 showing that many English language learners in DLI schools are not in DLI. Again, the correct groups aren't really being compared. You have to compare English learners who are in the program with those who are not. Comparing schools is not appropriate, which makes the data flawed. The district has to generate the data that compares those two groups specifically, DLI students, students in DLI and students not in DLI. Then you can make the appropriate comparisons between the two groups. The district should also be looking at map data and other literacy and math data as well. And we should be looking at longitudinal data. What is the growth data for the students who have remained in our programs? Using the appropriate data will help address my next concern, and that is that the review completely ignored the potential impacts of DLI programming on non-DLI classrooms and schools. How does this program affect the rest of the students overall, and specifically the students at the DLI sites? This is a voluntary program, so if a family doesn't want to participate, they don't. And the question is, how is this choice affecting our schools and our classrooms? What are some of the unintended consequences? For instance, how does DLI programming impact the special education enrollments in the classrooms? We have large special education populations whose needs also need to be addressed. Are we limiting the number of classroom placement options for them? Are we overburdening the non-DLI classrooms with special ed students? Let's think about that. If you had a child with a learning difficulty, would you choose to put them in a DLI classroom? Discipline is a huge issue in our district. What are the statistics of discipline issues in DLI classrooms versus non-DLI classrooms? Are there more disciplinary issues in one area as opposed to the other? Are we funneling discipline issues into fewer classrooms? And if so, what's the impact of that? And how do the other group categories disaggregate when we look at DLI versus not DLI? What's the ethnic composition of the various groups and sites? Are there any issues with gender? How do the poverty rates compare? How do attendance rates and chronic absenteeism rates compare? What is the possible impact if these are not equitable across our classrooms? And then what impact does DLI have on the enrollments in our buildings and our classrooms? Does a program impact on class size? Are the DLI classrooms smaller? If so, how much? Or does it impact the size of a building, right? How many students are moving from one building to another? Is that affecting the size of our elementary schools? These types of issues affect the learning environment for all of our students. Again, we need to disaggregate the achievement data, comparing those two groups and those subgroups within, while looking specifically at those other issues. At a minimum, this needs to be done by grade level and for the DLI sites. There's other data that should be looked at. What is the retention rate for students in DLI? How do those rates compare, English speakers versus non-English speakers? What are reasons students exit the program? What is the average length of time that students stay in the program? Do we have students that start at the beginning and continue? How many new students enter each year? How many of those new students are English speakers? Do we have a continued 50-50 ratio, or does it change at the grade levels? And I'm sure there are many other questions for which we could ask that we should have data. Staff shortages was identified as one of the challenges, and this has been a problem for this program since it started. The question is, should we continue a program we can't staff properly? But there is no data to help us answer that question, right? We should have longitudinal and specific data about the staffing issues. What are the statistics regarding the teacher retention and turnover in DLI? Are those issues mostly getting and retaining bilingual staff, or are there problems getting them for the English side as well? What's the average length of time that they stay? What recruitment practices have been tried?
Your phone is still connected but muted. Press star 6 to unmute.
The CESA staff talked to and received information only from staff and parents directly involved with the program. Obviously not a balanced look in my view. Parents in the non-DLI classes need to be considered as well, especially English families who are choosing not to participate in DLI. If not, why not? There needs to be discussions with the non-DLI staff and the DLI schools about their concerns and challenges. DLI programming in a building essentially divides that staff into two parts, and it makes it difficult to develop and sustain grade level or department teams and the rapport. The report stated the DLI teachers feel marginalized and unappreciated. Perhaps this is a result of being difficult for teams to work together effectively over curriculum issues and teaching issues. Finally, there was no discussion of the financial impact of this program on the district. And most certainly that needs to be done. I don't have the time I need to discuss or list the questions, but the financial implications of programs always must be addressed. Do I need to say more? Any program evaluation must look deeply into the appropriate data and study all the consequences of implementing a program. Programs, especially large ones, don't just impact the people directly involved, they also affect everything else around them. So we must try to look for and anticipate all of the consequences, intended or otherwise, for the programs that we plan and implement. And since the DLI program is being looked at for reorganization and restructure, we must have quality information and data so that we can make appropriate decisions on what will improve the outcome for all of our students. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Fox. Is that it?
I do have two gentlemen that walked in and said they'll be very brief.
Welcome.
Okay. Tim? Or Kyle? Oh, they're not, apparently they're not going to speak now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Our next is our student board report.
So we are having some technical issues with our Google Meet currently. We are live on the video, so the wall cameras are working, but our Google Meet opportunity where we could allow Mrs. Anaí Arroyo to participate, it won't allow her feed to come through because our Google Meet is frozen right now. And so what we'll do is we'll allow that, if you wouldn't mind, we can bring her report back at the next board meeting.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we should bring it inside. That might unfreeze it.
No problem. No problem. Next item is the annual financial audit. The purpose of this is the presentation of the 2023-2024 District Financial Audit Report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. The background information is each year Wisconsin school districts are required to have an outside audit of their financials completed. In response to an RFP process last year, the district selected Lauterbach and Amen LLP as our new audit firm. The 23-24 school year was the initial year of such engagement between parties. Lauterbach and Amen has recently completed the district's audit of the school district of Beloit for the 23-24 fiscal year. Ms. Stephanie Elwood. And Brad Porter from Lauterbach and Amen.
Just one moment while we're getting the presentation up.
It's up there.
Sorry. Okay, so he'll put it up there. Are you gonna do it?
Oh, is it on the board? Yeah.
That's not letting us connect right now. Do you mind if I? Well, while we wait, it's not a problem. We do have this presentation that is online, that's uploaded to all of our pages, of course, online. The audit that we do have is, of course, has been conducted over the course of last year. We know that there was a small delay in getting this back, and so that we're here today to work through our audit space. One of the things that I say about an audit is, of course, every year we have to do it. So it gives us a good snapshot of kind of where we are financially. There were some things that we do need to consider naturally in the audit that comes up, and we'll be able to explain some of those opportunities tonight. I do know that we have some technology difficulties currently, and I do believe we can still proceed with the presentation as necessary. Board members, there we go. I was going to say, board members, you can pull it up online if you'd like and then follow us along that way, but we have it up now.
Yep.
All right.
So good evening, Board. Tonight's presentation is a recap of our, like Dr. Garrison said, our 23-24 district financial audit, reflective of the activity as of June 30th, 2024. Board Policy 684 states that upon completion of the audit report shall be presented to the board for examination and acceptance. Brad Porter is here tonight, our auditor from Lauterbach and Amman, to give a brief overview and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Sounds good. For those of you who didn't know, it's National Bradley Day, I guess. That's the theme here. So good evening, board. My name is Brad Porter. I'm here on behalf of Lauterbach and Amman as the principal overseeing the district's financial statement audit process. Here to recap just a quick summary of the documents that we've issued at the conclusion of our fiscal year 2024 audit procedures. Thank you very much for the opportunity not only to be here, but obviously to work with us. We are greatly appreciative of that. You've got a great team here, and we are very appreciative of all of their efforts in getting us to this point here tonight. As Dr. Garrison said, I think LNA holds ourselves to a pretty high standard, and I do feel that we maybe fell a little bit short this year on the communication front. We've had a lot of very constructive, positive conversations down the stretch, and we're committed to ensuring that we do meet that January presentation for fiscal year 2025's audit. So apologize and greatly appreciate your patience on that front. All right, now I put together some slides. Feel free to follow along. My understanding is that each of you have been distributed a paper copy or electronic copy of these audit documents, but I've tried to include some screenshots of some of the more relevant information within each of the documents that we've issued. So feel free to just simply follow along with the PowerPoint presentation. My goal today is to take the 4 or 5 documents that we issue at the conclusion of each audit process and simplify them. I know sometimes the audit and management letter are quite difficult to understand and interpret, so I will do my best to focus on some of the more important and tangible components of your audit process. This is why auditors get a bad rep right here. An audit is really a year-round process, beginning in May with the planning meeting, ending in December or January with regards to the financial statement audit issuance. So we are, again, very appreciative of all the conversations that are happening throughout multiple periods of the year. Those tend to help ensure that the actual audit process goes that much more smoothly. So some of the processes in between that initial planning meeting in May and the final audit issuance in December would be things like internal control walkthroughs, where we're focused on ensuring that the district has safeguards in place over your cash receipting, cash disbursement, payroll, financial reporting, and credit card functions. So you'll see as we get into the management letter discussion, we had no findings on the internal control front, which should allow you to rest assured knowing that there are the right safeguards in place. We audit a number of school districts and try to provide value in that management letter outside of just the opinion that we've generated. The first piece of required communication we issue is what we call our SAS 114 letter. In accordance with Statement on Auditing Standard number 114, we are required to state whether or not we had any disagreements or difficulties that we had encountered during our audit process. And I'm happy to report, as you see highlighted here, we encountered no such disagreements or difficulties. So kudos to your team. The second piece of required communication is what we call our SAS 115 letter. We as auditors are required to issue what we call our Statement on Auditing Standard number 115 letter anytime we have a significant deficiency or material weakness. That sounds scary, but ultimately, when we enter into a first-year engagement, we have to develop some reassurance over the opening balances from the previous fiscal year's audit. And in doing so, we did identify a discrepancy pertaining to capital assets that we have subsequently corrected with what we call a restatement. And I will show you that footnote here momentarily. But it is important to understand that moving forward, the capital asset records that you're pulling from the Skyward detail reports will now align with the balances that are reported in your audit. That is not any fault of the district. It's just one of those audit oversight type matters that has occurred in the past and not been subsequently corrected. So we use this as an opportunity to ensure we got out in front of it and handled it the right way. You'll see here, this is a screenshot of the relevant footnote in your audit document. This fixed asset adjustment actually increased overall net position by about 1.15 million. So we like those, right? We like the understatements in which aid our governmental wide net position. And again, that's a screenshot there for your reference. Now, as we work into our annual audit document, I think there are 150 pages or so. Again, I'm going to do my best to break that down into just a couple of minutes, so be patient with me. Beginning with page 1, ironically, is what we call our independent auditor's report. Our objective as your audit firm is to ensure that we're generating an opinion on the financial statements that are provided to us by management. I'm happy to report that for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024, we've issued an unmodified opinion, which is the cleanest form of opinion that any governmental entity can receive, ultimately stating that we as your auditors believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material aspects and that there are no internal control findings. So congratulations on your clean opinion for fiscal year 2024. Just in terms of a quick financial highlight, and I know you are getting more current monthly financial updates, but I did just want to highlight our general fund overall fund balance as of June 30th, 2024. We had a net reduction in fund balance in our general fund of $1.21 million, ending the year with $10.49 million in accumulated fund balance, which was allocated between unrestricted and restricted by about 8.46 and 2.03 million respectively. You'll see here momentarily as we get into our management letter, the district did fall short of the 18% target that is established for the subsequent year's budgeted expenditures. We'll get to that again momentarily, but I just wanted to highlight that the ending fund balance of the ending unrestricted fund balance of 8.46 did fall below the 18% target that is established via board policy. If you're interested in understanding how certain line items performed in relation to budget, I've included the page numbers there, 53, 59, and 60, that will walk you through the general fund expenditures and revenues by function. I just wanted to point out pages 17 through 44 contain a lot of great narrative information. Note 1, you're going to find some of the whys surrounding our accounting policies and how we handle certain transactions. We call that our summary of significant accounting policies. Note 2 is what we call stewardship, compliance, and accountability. It's going to walk readers through the budgetary process of the district. Note 3 is what we call detailed notes on all funds, and it is exactly that. You'll find information pertaining to capital assets, long-term debt, pretty much everything that falls outside the scope of the other footnotes. And then note 4 is what we call other information. It could really just be titled pension disclosures, so you'll find information pertaining to your pension plans in note 4. And these footnotes are different by each audit firm, so I felt like it was important to make sure that you had an understanding of what information could be found within our audit documents. Now, we will jump into the management letter, and I want to add the caveat. The primary purpose of our management letter is to ensure that you as a board are made aware of any best practices that we see across some of our other school district clients. That can include things such as making sure you have a certain policy in place that you don't currently have. It can be internal control findings or weaknesses, as I had mentioned. And it can also be upcoming accounting principles that you should be made aware of that could have an impact on your financial statements. So I'm happy to report we only had 2 current recommendations from our fiscal year 2024 audit process, one of which you're already in the know on, which is with regards to our fund balance policy. And then we had 3 upcoming accounting standards with the respective fiscal years in which those standards will apply to. But nothing you as a board need to be worried for. We will work directly with the team in making sure that they're educated for the implementation of those standards. Current recommendation number 1, we had both of our debt service funds had exceeded our internal working budget This can happen for a plethora of different reasons. In this case, the biggest glaring number on that screen is with regards to our referendum debt service. That was simply due to the prepayment or defeasance on debt that occurred in fiscal year 2024. So you will see that disclosed. Again, these comments do not impact our opinion in any way, shape, or form. They are purely for board transparency. And the second comment was with regards to our general fund and that 18% target that is established. You can see we fell pretty significantly short, about $6.5 million of that 18% target as of June 30th, 2024. Any questions? I know I threw a lot of information at you.
Board Member Hankins?
Thank you, Mr. Brad. A couple of big things in my book. I had a chance to meet with Ms. Elwood and Mr. Chady and Dr. Garrison, and I was asking about our bond rating and or our credit rating, and we were at I think it was an A+ with a parentheses of whatever it was. And does this tie into that? And on the second part of that, and forgive me, I can't bring it up right now, but perusing through on Sunday, our long-term debt, there was 4 items listed with no reasons for why we have this long-term debt, not under this administration, but the biggest one being money owed on construction of this building we sit in.
Mm-hmm.
And could you give us, because I can't pull it up, and to my knowledge, we didn't have debt on this building anymore, or any buildings in our district. So if you could address those 2 things, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, I will address number 1, and I know Stephanie might have an answer for you on number 2 right off the bat. Again, I'm still learning the district in this first year engagement, but to answer the first component of that question, awesome, very good. Yes, ratings agencies utilize the audit probably more than any other document. They look at your different financial margins, different ratios. They'll look at total assets, liabilities, accumulated fund balance. I've been involved in quite a few conversations with my clients. You know, hey, we've got this upcoming bond ratings call. Here are the list of questions, and I'm going through. I'm like, wow, this is a really detailed list of questions that are generated directly from our audit document. So absolutely, this audit document is utilized in the generation of all of those financial figures, ratios, et cetera. With regards to the outstanding debt, you would be correct. You have.
Excuse me, but if you could tell us our current bond rating and why it is that.
I do not know your current bond rating at this point. I apologize. It's typically not something that is a part of our audit testing, if that makes sense.
Dr. Garrison, it was like A something with a parentheses going up or down or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember what the bond rating is, but I can vaguely recall it was A something, though. Sorry about that.
We can certainly get back to you.
No, it is what it is, and I know what I know. Thank you.
No problem. And with regards to your outstanding debt, you are absolutely correct. There are technically, after the defeasance on the current debt, we had 3 pieces of outstanding debt, one of which was issued in 2009. Those were general obligation qualified zone academic bonds for about $1.7 million. We only have $120,000 left on that obligation. We had $2.2 million of accumulated, or I guess ending balance on the general obligation qualified energy conservation bonds of 2012. And we had $4.8 million outstanding on Series 2017 school building and improvement bonds. Oh, sorry, missed one. There is an additional $2.5 million on the 2020 debt.
So there's 4 outstanding debts, long-term.
That would be correct, yep, that are long-term in nature.
And the issuing was in what date for COLAC? 2018?
I think it was the 2017 issuance, yep. It was a $5.5 million initial issue.
And we still owe 4.8?
Yes.
That is correct.
And how much debt service has been paid on 5.5? We're only at 4.8?
We're only at 4.845. So you paid $90,000 in principal in fiscal '24.
And we've been in the discussion of selling real property, and we've had an appraisal on this building to sell. obviously we're way upside down on this building. That's my opinion, but you know, I was not aware, nor do I know anybody on this board, I've only talked to 4, that we still owed $4.8 million on this building. I've never heard any talk of these long-term debts. That's not your problem. I'm just bringing it forward. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Very good. Well, thank you all for your time. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just waiting to be acknowledged.
I'm sorry, I don't have your screen up, so I don't
Oh,
see your hand because
no
of
worries.
the technical issues we're having tonight.
Got it, no problem, thank you. So 2 questions. The first is, do you deal with a fair number of other school districts? You're nodding yes? Okay.
we do.
If yes, according to our policy 662.3, our fund balance range is supposed to be within 14 and 25%. Is that on par, or is that very different from other districts that you work with?
No, I would say it's on par. And I know in the development of those policies, a lot of times the companies that you're utilizing will help steer help steer what those targets should look like. And again, I feel like that is pretty on par. You're not the only district by any means that's in the current position of falling below your fund balance target. So I don't want you to feel singled out on that discussion by any means, but obviously there are challenges in the world we live in, so.
And then my other question, in your reporting of the audit, we have 5 different fund balance classifications. So non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and then unassigned. Do you have a breakdown of what percentage those categories are? I didn't.
There's no percentages by category in our audit,
Or even
but
the
it's
amount?
certainly yes, I can point you in the direction of sorry, I just need to open the audit. I could certainly point you in the direction of the footnote for you. So there's a whole footnote pertaining to fund balance classifications. Just give me a moment. Oh my gosh. It is on page 32 of your audit.
Thank you so
It'll have
much.
all of your funds with the respected, non-spendable, as you mentioned, et cetera.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other board member questions? Mr. Nichols?
Thank you, Board President Johnson. Yeah, Brad, let's go back to the top item of the 2 that you gave us, current recommendations on the management letter.
Yes.
So please walk us through the funds over budget a little more in detail, if you could.
Sure.
I want to make sure I understand that, that's a lot. I mean,
Yeah, and so my understanding, again, without the numbers in front of me in terms of like our detailed trial balance, the funds over budget existed within your referendum debt service fund because we are required to recognize an expense on the fund level financial statements anytime you prepay debt via defeasance. So you had a large unbudgeted for prepayment on debt service that was recognized in fiscal year 2024 that caused that fund to naturally exceed the budget that was initially established for that fund. So that can happen due to timing things, so on and so forth. In this case, my assumption is that it was simply due to timing of when the defeasance took place in relation to when the budget was initially approved. So again, no big concerns are on our end by any means.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Garrison, did you have any questions?
I did, and I just want to thank the team for the work that transpired over this time. Of course, it takes a team to work through an audit. I know that, of course, a lot of our economic comes in and looks at a variety of different things, but naturally our team has provided a lot of different opportunities for us to all work through. It's great to know that, based off of the audit, that we are in good standing as a department under leadership, with the leadership we currently have. And naturally, I want to say that we want to continue to be better in some of the things that we currently have in place. We know what those occurrences, some of them are natural that you mentioned, but we want to make sure that we are uncommon.
Yes.
We'll make sure we get everything as close to perfect as we possibly can. And so thank you so much to the team that helped get all of this work together, of course. Brad, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And pretty much this is asking the board to move this for approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Garrison. If there's no further discussion on or questions on the financial audit, I would entertain a motion to accept the 2023-2024 District Financial Audit Report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Greg Schneider, seconded by Brian Anderson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item is our Ad hoc Finance Budget Committee recommendations. Carol Fox, the Ad hoc Finance Budget Committee Chair, is here tonight with a presentation for the Board of Education based on the spring referendum. Mrs. Fox?
Now I'm not timed, so I can take a minute to sort out my papers. You should have received on board docs, and maybe even earlier, the memo that we sent for your perusal over the weekend. As you know, the Ad hoc Finance Committee was newly tasked by this board to, quote, focus on budget and on referendum, including but not limited to referendum 2025. So the ad hoc committee sort of reorganized, and our first meeting around this task was on January 8th, and we've been meeting on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock since then. Some of the members who were with us in the fall were unable to continue, and we have added some new members. On the most recent one that was on the board docs, there is a list of all the folks who were involved in creating this document. We've had many discussions about the upcoming referendum and began by generating a list of questions and concerns we felt the citizens of our community would have. And we developed a basic outline of questions which were shared with Dr. Garrison and his team. From there, we developed the document that we're sharing with you today. I do want to recognize both Tom Warren and John Winkleman, who are here tonight, for their leadership in the development of this document. They were both instrumental in helping the committee organize our thoughts around some of these concerns. If you look at the beginning of the document, you can see that our main purpose is to fully support the passage of the April 1st referendum. We as a group have studied the finances of the district, particularly the 24-25 budget, and we truly struggled over the recommendations that we made in September. Those, as you remember, were extremely hard. No one wants to consider cutting the services that we had to recommend, but that's what millions of dollars in deficit does. The idea of considering yet another $6.2 million cut is daunting, to say the least. And a prospect of another $8 million after that, the word we used in our document was untenable. It's just unthinkable. And we state, quote, without the passage of a referendum, our district will be facing serious financial deficits, jeopardizing our children's future, requiring the curtailing of important programs, eliminating essential services, and laying off vital staff. Financial support from the community must be understood as an investment in our children and in our community as a whole. Since this is the case, we felt it imperative that the board and administration address certain priorities. This is needed in order to convince citizens that the additional tax dollars are essential and will be used wisely and effectively. So, oops, lost my pen. I don't need it. So we address the following issues. Financial accountability. The community must have specific and clear information about the reasons for our financial problems, the actual cuts that have been made this year and last year, and what the specific financial costs to the taxpayers will be. That section referred to some attachments, and you should find a complete list of cuts that looks kind of like this, that were part of the financial presentations that were made to the board last fall. This group is grouped by categories to help kind of understand where some of the cuts were made. And then also attached, this list has some asterisks on it on some of the more major categories of positions, and there's an additional list of some of those positions also attached. The 20 teacher positions, building administrators, COLAC. These lists do not include any of the unfilled or vacant positions that are current in the district. I do want to, as you look at that, I do want to remind you that things do change, and the teachers list in particular is a good example. I didn't really have any chance to talk to Dee Dee about it, but it's 22 teachers, not 20. And when we realize how fluid things are in school districts, right? I'm sure Converse and Gaston don't have those two particular positions, but we do know that at the fall, they had lots of kindergartners, so we had to add back in kindergarten teachers. So people need to understand that there has to be flexibility there. But we have to try to get out as correct information as we can. When looking at the overall list, I think we can address another issue too. That'll be the phone. We know that there's been continued concerns that the last fall's ad hoc committee suggestions went unheeded. And I think if one studies this list, you'll find that the bulk of the recommendations are in there. And also, we never expected or anticipated that the recommendations would be implemented without any change or adaptation. Our role is to make recommendations, suggestions, or proposals, nothing more. So that leads us to the specific and measurable goals. We believe that the district needs to ensure the community that the district will use the funds to gain from the referendum to target specific goals. There also needs to be frequent monitoring and reporting of the goals, the progress being made. The document has some specific goals that we believe the community would like to see. However, these again are recommendations. The board needs to look at these and develop your own specific goals based on these recommendations. Our goals address improving the learning environment of our schools and the classrooms by the end of 26-27, by continually to work over the next 3 years on improving the environment by looking at attendance and absenteeism, discipline, teacher retention, school achievement data of all kinds. We had one for reducing teacher turnover as compared to state averages, and one on increasing teacher salary at a rate that's comparable to the other areas to ensure high quality and a stable core of teachers. Other districts are having similar issues with teacher shortages. We have to be able to make sure we can compete with what other districts are offering. The next section was present successes, and the committee appreciates that there are many excellent programs and opportunities our district offers to our students that need to be recognized. And there is a district PowerPoint called Highlights, Celebrations, and Opportunities that was shared with us and will be a great tool to use for this purpose. While recognizing these programs, however, we also must clarify that many of these will be at risk if we have to cut another $6.2 million from that budget, particularly extracurricular and non-core subjects. This next section was return on investment. We actually believe this is pretty much the main area of focus, which developing detailed plans and goals will help clarify. The community needs a clear picture on of what they can expect from investing additional tax dollars in the district. And finally, in the last section, we talked about consequences of a failed referendum. There needs to be a clear and available plan for the 25-26 school year as what would happen should the referendum fail. In my mind, this is twofold. It is imperative that the community really know and understand what the stakes are, and the board needs to be prepared for that worst-case scenario, because I believe we've learned that we can't wait until October to figure out how to deal with a deficit budget. In conclusion, we believe that the health of our community requires a strong, viable school district. Communities who invest in their schools recognize that they are investing in the future of their community. We cannot let our children down by putting our district in continued financial crisis. We wholeheartedly support the passage of the April 1st referendum.
Thank you, Mrs. Fox.
Any questions?
Are there any questions from board members? Board member Megan Miller?
Hi, thank you, and I apologize for coming, and we had parent-teacher conferences tonight, so it's always fun to be in two places at one time. I want to first thank you for putting this presentation together, and in particular for noting the celebrations piece as well, because that was something I was hoping would come up tonight. I think for me, what resonated the most, the SMART goals piece is essential. Because we have this data. I was sort of just reflecting today at work. We look at student data and things like that, and it's like you look at the numbers to understand a whole child. You don't look at a child to reduce them to numbers. And what I like about you got to do something with it though, and it's all for nothing unless there's a plan that you make strategically to operationalize this vision. And I think what I see coming through with this report is I feel like there's a lot of cohesion between the ad hoc committee's insights and what we've discussed, as a board, what we've heard from our administration. And there's also not just the what, but that how makes me feel really energized. So I was just really excited, and thank you so much for all the time and for putting this together. My only question is just to the piece that you spoke about in terms of, I think you stated it in your report, it was something like, there's so much stuff, but it's what was the word you used? It was like under-recognized, like it's not out in the world, like the good things that are happening, and that's something that like we all need to do a better job of doing. I was just curious if, this isn't necessarily just a question to Ms. Fox, but to the district, have we really looked at the extent to which we're partnering with groups like, even like Visit Beloit and things like that, like multiple channels like throughout the municipality that are already tasked, right, with like getting the word out about what's the latest, greatest in the community as a whole? Did that come up at all in conversation, or if I don't know if anybody from the administration wants to jump in on that?
We have not had any conversations around that. The district has many successes which are frequently ignored, is the way we put it, in the continued discussions around referendums. I think lots of people are aware that there's lots of good things happening in our district. They could probably be more aware. I think we get way too focused on some of the things that aren't so good in the district, especially when we're talking about money and taxes and things that we don't like, because we don't like to pay taxes. But who likes to pay taxes? Nobody. But it gets to the point where it's like, if we want services, if we want good school districts, if we want good things in our community, we have to be willing to support that, and we have to support it with our tax dollars.
I appreciate that, and I just wanted to bring that up because I think in terms of, we're not asking people like, hey, let's start from scratch. Like it's also on the other side of things, it's not an erasure, right, of the work to be done, but there has to be this acknowledgement of like, we're on a good path. Some things are working pretty well here. In order to keep us moving down that path, this is what we need, and I really feel like, as people kind of unify around that vision, I feel like that's where like those SMART goals like really like can get legs and we can actually get that buy-in. So that's why I brought it up in the context. I realize it's an ad hoc on finance and not on communication, but I just felt like that point stuck out to me as being a really essential ingredient in making these things happen. So I just wanted to thank you and clarify.
Yeah, you have to have the balance, I think. And I think that it's a very hard balance to get, because we don't want to be too Goldilocks either about, because we know there's some really significant and difficult issues in the district, and we don't want to just say, be Goldilocks about that, or, hiding our head in the sand. We want to be very truthful about those things. And yet we can still be truthful about the fact that we have these other things that are wonderful and are happening in our district and are providing wonderful things for our kids. And we don't want to lose those while we try to fix things that we think that may not be where we want them to be.
100% agree. Thank you so much.
Dr. Garrison, did you want to chime in?
Yes, so thank you so much. And, Mrs. Fox, actually the celebrations conversation that we're kind of focused on right now, in the ad hoc meeting, we talked about making sure that we bring that conversation forward. Of course, that was a homework assignment that was given to me when I stepped out just for a brief moment, came back in with...
Sorry, you just can't leave.
From Mr. Warren. And so we were able to, pull that conversation together. There's a lot of great things that are happening in the school district of Beloit. And naturally, we want to make sure we showcase those opportunities. I also want to just thank the ad hoc committee for, of course, working with us through this conversation. Naturally, every iteration of a conversation changes, right? And I think that we've been able to, keep working through some of the things that you all want to see, as well as what we can provide here as a school district. And so I want to say thank you for the partnership in that space. And I also want to just thank you for your support in the stating that we will want to have a referendum as well. I think it's very important that I put that thanks out here publicly for that. So thank you.
Board Member Tom Hankins.
Thank you. Ms. Fox, and going back to what Ms. Miller said, and I totally agree, and I think the ad hoc committee addressed it well, and I was not on the committee, but I was there for a lot of the sessions in the last go-around, was rightfully so, the collaboration. She said Visit Beloit. There's many collaborations that this district could use to help us. And Visit Beloit is just one of many. And I know that under your leadership, Ms. Fox, that those things were addressed as things that don't cost money. The college. We go on and on about different things that we could use to help collaborate and push this district forward. So I applaud Megan for bringing it forward, and I think Ms. Fox and Tom and John and everybody in the ad hoc has kind of addressed it, but yeah, we got to keep pushing it forward. Thank you.
Board Member Levy.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to offer thanks to you and the entire committee. If I heard you correctly, you guys are meeting every Wednesday, and that is no small thing to commit to volunteering your time once a week. And we acknowledge that that's time away from family and other activities that you could be doing, and to come up with like a thorough quality document, and just very supportive of the committee's position on the referendum. So thank you for putting all this together for us. Very helpful.
Any other board member questions or comments? Mr. Nichols?
Would just pretty much ditto what Board Member Levy just said. Thank you. You guys did a great job first time, and you're doing a great job now with some new and some, I'm not going to use the word old. I never use that. And, returning members. So thank you. Thanks to all of you for that dedication. We understand that. So thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
No, you don't have to stay up there, Ms. Fox, but again, thanks for the work. And I think, listening to and speaking to some of the people on the ad hoc committee, I think one of the phrases that sticks out for me is, and it goes with the general public too, is that you can't fix all the problems with money, but you got to have money to fix some of these problems, right? And so I think as we go out and continue to go out in the public, and as our administration are using a lot of the tools that you're providing, a lot of the analysis that you've done, it's going to go a long way, I think. So thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, we'll cross our fingers, absolutely.
Any other board member questions or comments? Thank you, Mrs. Fox and the ad hoc committee. We really appreciate your work and dedication. Next on the agenda is the update on the continuous improvement plan for Hackett Elementary School. Tonight we have Ryan McReynolds, the principal from Hackett Elementary, with Shamari Moore, the assistant principal. And the purpose of this is to provide an overview of the goals, strategies, and efforts currently underway at Hackett Elementary in order to have continuous improvement in academic performance and attendance measures. The background information is the School District of Beloit requires each site to have a continuous improvement plan, a CIP, that identifies 3 goals in the areas of literacy, math, and social emotional behavior. The goals are determined by data-informed decisions making as we encourage the triangulation of data as a best practice. In addition to the goals, the schools work collaboratively with site-based and district staff to identify strategies that will be implemented in order to meet the goals. Based on the Department of Public Instruction State School Report Card Grading System, Hackett was identified as a school with a rating of not meeting expectations and is working towards becoming a school that once again meets or exceeds expectations. Mr. McReynolds.
All right, thank you. Good evening. So I'm here to discuss our current state, where we are right now. We know where we were, and that's definitely not a space where we want to wind up again. Just kind of give you a breakdown of our student and staff demographics. We have 440 students currently enrolled at Hackett. We've had about 466 total students over the course of the school year. We serve early childhood, 3-year-old program all the way through 5th grade. 80% are economically disadvantaged, 51% female, 49% male. And then just a breakdown of the students we serve, 57 total staff members with 22 different classroom teachers. About us, our vision statement is be kind, be well, be strong, and most importantly, be your best. So we try to live that each day as our motto and something to strive for our students. Something to note, previously we have been a 3- and 4-star school under my leadership and, in recent history. So we've been there before, and we're working diligently to get back to where we know we can be. So that's the goal. Couple pictures of our students. Who doesn't love these cuties? So hard at work, smiling faces. Kids are learning and growing each day. So the next few slides will kind of help us roll through a breakdown of where we are for literacy, math, and also our social emotional. Our building goal for literacy, it was to increase our proficiency. So we started the year at a baseline of 29.6% of our students were proficient, and we want to get to at least 50% proficiency. Obviously, we want 100%, but realistically, we were looking at that 50% target, which is a pretty aggressive growth margin. And then for our Spanish proficiency, we started the year at about 22.6% proficient, and we're aiming to move towards right under 50%, 49.8%. In addition, we want all students in grades 3 through 5, those are the students who are MAP tested, we want all those students to grow. They'll take the initial assessment in the fall, and wherever they landed in the fall, we want that growth score to go higher by the end of the year. So every student who takes that test, we want them to increase their scores. Our forward information, our grade 3 wound up at 20.4% proficient on the state assessment. Grade 4, a little bit lower at 15.7%. And then a grade 5 was 13.1%, which gave us an overall 16.2% of our students were meeting or exceeding proficiency there. So what are we doing about it, right? That's the big thing here. So what are our action steps? We've been doing monthly learning walks with our coaches and teachers where we take them out of the classroom, they go observe other teachers teaching, we go back, debrief, and then take some action steps out of that. So that occurs monthly. That's in building, and also we have district support with that as well. Act 20 is something that has been a state mandate. So we've really embraced that process, and teachers are using that information to help better drive their instruction daily for our students. Small group instruction was something that we really wanted to target this year. So we created our master schedule around that. So students are receiving daily small group instruction on the right schedule We're continually assessing our students and deploying students based on what they need, because we know that our kids, where they were a week ago is not where they are today. So we're continually assessing them and adjusting groups, which has been a lot of work, but we've found our achievement has shown it's been worth it. And again, we just started a tutoring pilot. We have 12 students who we identified that receive 3 days of online tutoring in small groups. So they meet with an online tutor and for about 30 minutes on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and they target specific skills that we identified that they were lacking. And then lastly, student goal setting. Again, our goal is for every student to grow. So they set a goal for themselves. Hey, I was at 190 in the fall. When I take my winter assessment, I want to be at 200 or so on. So that way when they take the assessment, they're not just going and taking the assessment, they have a goal in mind. They've worked with their classroom teacher to set those goals. So that way they have a target in mind. And I'm happy to report our students are still currently taking MAP testing. We're seeing a lot of positive results, and kids are happy to say that they're meeting their goals, some even crushing them.
Mr. McReynolds?
Yes.
Do you want to take questions throughout your presentation or at the end?
Whatever is easier for you guys. I know it's going to be a lot of information, so if you want to throw questions at me, I'm fine with that.
Okay, I do have a question on the forward tests. I see you've got the current proficiencies by grade and action steps that you guys are taking. Do you have any goals specifically set out in relation to forward tests?
We have instruction embedded, so we target specific skills, that the students are lacking in terms of forward, but we feel like with the curriculum, with the small groups, we're gonna get a lot of the deficiencies that we saw from last year embedded within that. So we are being strategic, like we do know what they are lacking, and we have an action plan, basically we're carrying out daily that we're addressing that, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other board members have questions on the literacy? Mrs. Levy?
I'm going to try to sneak in two quick ones. I noticed that on your listed points of pride, you have family engagement, and I'm just wondering anecdotally, what are the plans of encouraging and increasing that family engagement, and how do you want to see that translate into student achievement? And then my second question, I love the idea of the learning walks, and I understand how difficult this question can be, but are there conversations about getting your staff into other buildings to observe their peers at grade level for some of the same things that you're doing inside the building?
I'll go with second question first, and then we'll jump backwards. Ideally, that would be wonderful. The reality of our current situation, I think in a lot of schools, situations with sub shortage, it might not be possible. But I'm sure with technology, there might be a way to do that. We can video conference in or something of that nature. Some of the schools are close enough where on their prep they could leave and switching gears a little bit to math. So our math goal is twofold. The district benchmark is an assessment that our students take. In previous years, it was a requirement that all students took that, at least in our building. This year, it was optional. So it was mandatory K through 2, but optional grades 3, 4, or 5. So our goal is again, twofold. So our students in kindergarten through second grade, we wanted them to increase their proficiency to at least 75% by the spring benchmark. So they take it in the fall. The scores on the screen there are where they landed.
Press *6 to unmute.
Are where they landed in the fall. They'll take it again in the winter, which we're currently taking that benchmark assessment, and then they'll take it again in the spring. So our goal is for all the students who take that to be at 75%. The second part of that is for our grades 3 through 5 students wanting to increase growth on the MAP assessment, because that's their assessment tool for 3 through 5. Our forward data on the screen here, grade 3 was 25.9%, and then we saw a pretty significant dip in grades 4 and 5 in proficiency, which leveraged us to an overall of 13.2% proficient in math on the forward assessment. Our action steps, what are we doing about it? We have math learning walks, very similar to our literacy walks we have. Those are both done at the district level and in-house. We're focusing on growth, again, that growth mindset. Imagine math lessons, like Ms. Malat had mentioned before. There's a huge correlation between the number of lessons completed and then the outcomes on those state assessments. So we're really pushing our students to be on Imagine Math and completing those lessons, not just doing them, but completing them. And again, that growth mindset, working with our students to set those goals and knowing what the end is in mind for them is. Our fall MAP assessment information, we had 18% of our students after the fall assessment were proficient. Again, if you go back a couple slides, we were at 13.3% in math on the forward. So we're right now where we stand, we would be above that by about 4.7% or so. And there's a lot of learning left to do for the year. Any questions on math before I jump to the last category? Alrighty. Our last is our social emotional behavior goal. Buildings have a choice of where you want to focus. For us as a building, we met as a team. We felt like attendance was something that was very, very crucial because it covers so much. If our students aren't here, they're not learning. And everything else is, is a domino effect from there. So we need our students here daily, on time. Last year, our student attendance was 88.6% of daily average attendance. Our goal is to be upwards of 95%. Currently, we're at 91.6%, which is pretty high. We're trending in the right direction, as you'll see in the next couple of slides. How are we doing that? We have a walking school bus this year. We received a grant, and a lot of the walking school buses stop when the weather gets cold. Ours has continued. We've actually added students, so shout out to Mr. C and Miss Carey. They are bundled up even this morning. They were out there. They'll be out there tomorrow morning. We serve about 30 students or so, and they've had to change the route so many times because the word's gotten out to our families, like, hey, we're doing this walking school bus. We want on it. So they take them and they reroute them, and we're getting them to school. So again, focusing on families we know. So if they've been with us, we kind of know what the attendance looks like in the past. So we work with those families the best we can to eliminate any barrier, to work with them, to remind them the importance of attendance. We've done home visits, attendance contracts, and just kind of getting the word out in the community. Hey, School District of Beloit, we want our kids here. If you know someone, get them here. Hey, I know your student goes to Hackett. Are they going to school every day? Just kind of building that expectation of being at school every day. The next couple of the graphs, so the top one up there is our yearly average attendance, starting all the way on the left from 2020. We were at 95%, and then we saw a dip. This is during the COVID times, 80%. But each year, the important thing to point out, our attendance has increased every year. That percent has increased, which is a good sign. On the bottom left there, it shows that the green line shows our attendance is again increasing after that little dip, and the yellow line is our chronically absent students. So we want that number to go down, which that is showing right there. And then the third graph on the bottom right for you guys is a combination of your average daily attendance and your chronically absent students. So attendance is going up, chronically absent students are going down, which is also how we're measured on the state report card. With that, I've done a lot of talking. You guys were able to ask some questions. Do you have any more questions that I can address for you guys at this time?
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I love the specific way that you're attacking some of these problems that you've identified. Let's just say you hit, you know, they are lofty goals, right? But you got to have lofty goals, right?
Absolutely.
And let's say you hit those proficiency benchmarks. Not everybody in the community will dig in and understand your proficiency scores, right? So let's just say you hit those. What would that translate to when the public says, hey, you're a 1-star school, now you're a 2-star school, maybe a 3? Like, I know it's a kind of a guess, right? But if you hit those goals, what would that translate to on this star rating that everybody hangs their hat on?
If we reach the achievement that we've set out, there's no way we'll. I mean, I don't want to say no way because it's a state report card. I do not control it. But I feel very confident in saying that if we achieve what we believe we can achieve and we're working hard to achieve, we will not be a 1-star school next year. You know, in the fall when the scores come out, we won't be there.
Okay.
So it'll be 2, 3. You know, but that's the goal, right? You start. We're at 1. We're gonna go up. We'll hopefully it'll be 2 or 3, and we're gonna keep going up.
I believe you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Miller?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity. Thank you again so much for sharing all this with us. Comment and a question, very brief. The attendance piece, I want to just kind of build on what Mr. Anderson just said. The specific, the interventions that you're putting in are so well matched, right, to the issue. And we heard about it at a previous committee meeting about how there was a study recently done about like where the schools that have been most resilient nationally after COVID, like what do they all have in common, right? And like the number one thing I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure the first thing on there is a sense of belonging. So like those relationships, the contracts that like helping, not just like the home visits, but bringing kids in and helping them take ownership and building up that self, like that is so huge. And I'm just like, as a parent, even just really appreciative of that practice. I hope it's something that all of our schools continue to do. So I just wanted to like highlight that. I love that the decision-making in general that's on here, it's like evidence-based, data-driven stuff. And I guess a broader comment in general, something that I think would be a good direction just for the board to go in, just kind of reflecting on what you shared, because the nature of a report card is like there's like a sense of completion, something is finished, right? But really like how we measure ourselves and how we best serve our kids is like rate of progress, rate of growth, right? Like we're looking at upward trends, and like you've just shown us some really good upward trends. And I think like the question that we don't need to answer tonight at this meeting is like how moving forward, and maybe it's something in the next strategic plan, do we own our narrative in a way that is transparent, with integrity, that also though bridges understanding so people really see like what you just beautifully explained, like what does it mean to show progress? If you're just to look at a snapshot in time number, that does not accurately and transparently communicate like the actual growth and great work that's happening. And so I'm really just sort of like putting that hypothetical thought into the space because I'm hoping it's something that we can incorporate into like how we continue, right, to communicate kind of what Brian was saying here, like into the community. But thank you. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
Any other board questions or comments? Dr. Garrison?
I would like to say, first of all, it's never easy to talk about where you want to grow from. And sometimes we take that for granted. And so I want to thank Mr. McReynolds for the conversation. I know we naturally have a lot of conversations internally, and we talk about these things all the time. But publicly, at times people may think that we're not, right, for whatever reasons. And we are talking about these things all the time, whether it's be in his school naturally with his staff, or whether it be through a conversation that we have with the teaching and learning department, with myself through evaluation conversations. And so there's a lot of things that goes into changing a narrative, right? And when you're trying to change a narrative, you also have to remember that we are a part of that narrative. We have to make sure that people know our story. And so thank you so much for, telling the story of Hackett, kind of where we are, where we want to go, and of course, where we want to be, right? And so you did make a real important statement. And I think it's very important to note this. We've been there before. I think sometimes Beloit forgets that too. We have seen success. we know what it looks like. We still have to we have to get there again, right? And so we are making those changes. We are doing the things that needs to be done, not just at of course, Hackett, but across the school district. And again, I want to make sure I say thank you for the presentation and, of course, the collaboration that it took over these, past few weeks to get it to this point. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Then Vice President Nichols.
Thank you. Great. Don't go away. Don't. Nice move.
Back.
No, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a simple question. How can we help?
You guys are more than welcome to come in the buildings anytime you want and see the great learning that's happening. I think just kind of putting that conversation into the space of like, hey, good things are happening in our schools. And I think we all want the same things. We want our students to grow and achieve. I think all of us being on the same page, board, staff, community, I think that's going to make the biggest impact to see us where we want to go. So I appreciate the question.
You're welcome. Thank you. Keep after it. You're on the right track.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McReynolds. Our next item is the consent agenda. Typically, there are no separate discussion of the items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item or items will be removed from the general order of the business and considered in their normal sequence on the agenda. Items B, C, and D have been removed due to not all board members being able to access those. Mrs. Levy.
Thank you. I'd like to remove item E as in Edward and H as in hello, please.
E and H. Are there any others? I would move an approval of the consent agenda of items F, G, and I.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Megan Miller, seconded by Amy Levy. Any discussion? Mrs. Levy, do you have a?
Nope, just a remaining hand up.
Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mrs. Levy, item E, please.
Yes. So two things in item E, which is voting methods. If you don't have it in front of you, the proposed name change is board member voting and participation in meetings. I'll start with the greatest concern first. There is a line in there that if passed, it would exclude board members from participating virtually in closed session. And I'm so happy to see Rob in the audience. We might put you to work. My concern at the policy committee level was I'm not sure that we have the authority to exclude board members from participating in meetings. And I'm particularly concerned because there's a line that says, remote participation of legal counsel in closed session meetings shall be at the discretion of the board president, which is my second point. So let me just finish this one. If we are permitting remote participation in closed session in certain instances, I'm not sure if we have the legal authority to exclude board members from participating in that manner. And so I had asked for feedback on that, so I'll pause in case the administration has an update.
I unfortunately do not have an update on whether or not the board can participate remotely legally. I think it came from some other conversations that happened at a meeting that was conducted earlier this year. I don't think is there any legal stance on that currently. More so best practice, I should say.
And just for clarification, and I get the hesitation for it, and I'm not saying that I disagree with those concerns. However, just so we're clear, my question is, do we as a board have the legal authority to exclude a board member from participating in closed session virtually, especially if there are certain instances where other parties would be able or have the availability to participate in closed session. And then we also discussed at the policy committee meeting where I talked about the remote participation of legal counsel in closed session meetings shall be at the discretion of the board president. I had mentioned that I think that should be a board decision, and I think there are a lot of great reasons to have legal counsel participate virtually. It could be a reduction in cost, et cetera, that should be a board decision, and I don't recall there being pushback at the committee meeting. Someone correct me if I was wrong, but that change wasn't made in the policy. So I just have those two concerns.
Well, I can address the first one, and this was discussed at a WASB webinar. I believe the date was November 12th on open meetings laws, and Mr. Butler, this issue came up, and he said that there is no currently, as of that date, no specific laws one way or the other, but that their stance was best practice was to not have remote participation in closed session due to the difficulty of ensuring the integrity of any space other than that room. Mr. Nichols, did you have a response for the second question? I don't recall.
Regarding legal counsel?
Yeah.
Okay.
The meeting.
Yeah, remote participation for legal counsel. No, just as I pointed out in the policy committee that, and Mr. Bukema, you can certainly weigh in on this, but you are our legal counsel, and when we talk to you, we're under attorney-client privileges, correct? So if you're in your office, we have to assume, I think, that, there's nobody else in there with you. I mean, we're talking with you or your associates, all under attorney-client privilege, correct? So there would be no problem with this.
Probably can guess that I do have some thoughts on it, but I'm really not.
Mic on, thank you.
I do have some thoughts on this, but I don't really have the context or the background. I'd like to give you an informed decision. I mean, there are statutory limitations on exclusion of board members, so I don't know where the context for that is, and also the proper precautions needed to take. An attorney has an obligation of confidentiality, so we have a pledge. We cannot do otherwise. I think, the discussion should be, and I would like to take a look at the policy to say, does it protect and safeguard the board in terms of confidentiality? I'd just like to take a look at that. It's not a cop-out. I have all kinds of thoughts, but I don't have the context for it. I would,
Okay.
Could you wait, and then I could give my thoughts on it?
We could do that. We could do that. We could move it to the next meeting.
Any other questions or comments for item E? Ms. Miller?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just, Board Vice President Nichols, you took that right out of my head. I really like the spirit of this policy. I think it's really important to clarify and define all of these things. And I don't have any strong feelings in opposition at all. I do think, though, because this touches on the ability of a board to conduct its basic functioning, right, to meet and to operate. I would prefer to get like a really comprehensive legal understanding before we move forward, but I do appreciate everything that's in here and where you're coming from, on the broad sense of things. So does that feel okay to could we move to table until the next meeting, or what timeline do you as the chair believe is appropriate?
That's what I just said. We'll move.
Oh, okay.
We'll move it to the next.
This
meeting.
very next. Okay,
Right.
I didn't know if it was like a later. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, and that will be dependent on Mr. Bukema's response. Thank you. No pressure.
Board Treasurer Brian Anderson.
Yeah, I guess my only thought on it is, and Board Member Levy pointed out and didn't really get an address to her question on where remote participation of legal counsel would be at the discretion of the board president. And I think, we can only make decisions when the seven of us get together. And I think an agenda might be made or something might come up. And that, by not allowing the board president, I feel like that would cause us to have a special meeting to vote to let legal counsel participate remotely for a future meeting. And so I think just to let the due course of business, I think leaving that discretion to the board president, in my opinion, would be appropriate.
Any other board questions or comments on E? Mr. Hankins?
Just a comment. I think the general spirit of what this was proposed was for, and it wasn't, I was part of that thing on the 14th, but I think it goes back to my tenure on this board. There's been problematic times we've been in closed session where, whether via phone or video, you're in, out, can you hear me? The normal cadence of a meeting gets interrupted by technical difficulties, and in the spirit of that, along with who knows who's in the room or in the car with said board member, I think that was the spirit that was brought forth. And I succinctly remember saying COVID is over, and I think originated back in that era when we did a lot of things remotely. I think closed session is closed session, and we can't guarantee not calling anybody out. We can't guarantee the closed space of anybody, and I know that was brought up, Board President and Dr. Garrison. What was that? The term of that closed space, and no one can guarantee that. And I know there's a term for it in the policy. So that was the spirit of why this was brought forward. It was no slight against anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Then with, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, Greg. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Schneider.
As busy as people are and more and work commitments, but there are times it makes it very difficult to be in person for the entire meeting. That to begin to exclude the online option, again, is excluding people from major discussions that need to take place. So while I understand the real concern about being in a secure location, I'm also concerned about ending up excluding people because of other commitments that they have, and losing their voice in discussions.
Any other comments? Then if policy chairman would take this up at the next meeting?
Yes, I move that we move this to the next regular board meeting.
Second.
And who made the second?
I did.
Megan Miller. Motion by Brian Nichols, seconded by Megan Miller. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
I'm
Oh,
so sorry, my hand is
I'm
up.
sorry, Mrs.
Just for
Levy?
clarification, we'll be tabling this to our next regular meeting for a first reading.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board Member Levy.
And just clarification, it'll go back to policy? No?
No, regular board.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, clarifications? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is item H, policy 223.1 tuition/continuing education reimbursement and 223.1 Rule 1 procedures for administrator continuing education credit reimbursement. Board Member Levy.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. These two policies are up for recommendation to be suspended until June 1st of this year. My concern is this. In October, we became aware of items that needed to be pulled back on in order for us to have a balanced budget. So I'm concerned with the administration having that knowledge that tuition reimbursement still remained in the administrator contracts, which is my understanding were signed in January. So the contracts list a provision for tuition reimbursement, even though that was one of the things that we as a district were deciding to hold back on to help balance the budget. So this is in their contracts that were signed by the district and signed by administrators. And then unless I understood the conversation wrong at policy, the administration communicated to administrators, we're not doing that, even though it's in the signed contract. So my problem with that is I don't think that's an okay practice, number one. And number two, having it in the contract is not a guarantee that it will be approved. And so my second problem with that is that if we had honored the contract and followed the procedure in the policy, if you go to Rule 1, it kind of lays out how this is supposed to happen. So number 3, administrators will be reimbursed by the School District of Beloit for no more than 6 credits per contract year. Number 4, and I'm only going to go through 3 of these, don't worry. Number 4, every February, a forecast of current administrators' intention to use continuing education credit reimbursement during the next budget year will be performed to anticipate budgetary impacts. And then number 6, administrators desiring to use continuing education credit reimbursement as provided in the administrative contract must participate in the forecast. So before we suspended this policy, which is proposed tonight, we violated this policy by not allowing our administrators to participate in the forecast. If they had an opportunity to participate in a forecast at a regular meeting in February, we would have a list of administrators not to exceed 6 credits per administrator. These are the classes, and then the board would have an opportunity to say, can we manage this in the budget? If no, we could deny the request and still not violate the contract and be in line with our policy. But the way it was handled with unless there's something I'm missing, administrators being told this benefit that is in your signed contract, we're not doing that. They weren't able to participate in the forecast, which causes us to violate our policy, which tonight we're being asked to suspend, and I'm not okay with that process. So hopefully that was clearly laid out, and I'm not able to support the suspension of this because we should have followed, in my opinion, we should have followed the process instead of telling them this benefit that you have, you can't use that right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Levy. You did a wonderful job of explaining that. I did have a community member reach out to me after the policy committee with some concerns and trying to explain the back and forth on that. It took some time. Dr. Garrison?
Yes, so, there's some validity in the conversation from Mrs. Levy, and I want to make sure that everyone is keenly aware that when we went down this road around looking at reductions in our overall budget, this did come up last year. We did have 2 administrators that we will still honor in that space who, if they turn in their credits from last year, we will still honor that space because I do believe that's the right thing to do. With that being stated, in the new contracts, yes, that is language, as Mrs. Levy clearly delineated, that is language that is in their contract currently. I think our contract language also provides us with some flexibility in that if we can't pay for certain credits, the board, of course, could make that decision along with conversation that I have with the board, with the administrators as well. Since it was suspended, well, I shouldn't say, since it was paused, that's the way I used, that's what I called it. Since it was paused in the last iteration of us really looking at our budget and making some constraints there, we did believe it was appropriate to bring it back to the policy committee for a further conversation, because we do believe it should be suspended currently, just to, safeguard any possible new tuition conversations coming forward in this month. Mrs. Levy is correct that the principals or administrators, will not be able to participate in the forecast just based off of what we even did last semester, because that has not been lifted, quote unquote, based off of our current budgetary constraints. So everything Ms. Levy stated is correct. It is something that we have to kind of look at, but we do believe currently as an administrative team that we probably need to suspend the policy through June 1, which gives us the opportunity to see kind of where things will be, and to bring that back at a different time. Mrs. Almeida, am I missing anything with that?
So we did bring 2 administrators last year. They were approved, and currently we have the last of the 2 administrators. We have the last reimbursement in progress. So no one that was previously approved has not been reimbursed as a part of this. So I just wanted to clarify. And the second piece, there is nothing truly in the verbiage of the contract that guarantees, because there is verbiage to the effect that it would be considered for approval, and the fact that it was not removed from the contract, I have not, and I cannot speak for Dr. Garrison, but I have not, as of the date of this submittal, heard or had anyone send a request to be added to the list to bring to the board in February as is stipulated in our policy. So therefore, I can't say I have denied anybody the opportunity at this time.
Mrs. Levy, is your hand still up, or is that?
No, that's new.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So here's my problem. No one submitted a request because they were told we're not doing that. And it's recorded, it's available on the World Wide Web. So if you have a benefit in your contract, but you're being told we're not doing that, then I wouldn't submit a request to a thing that I'm being told is not happening, but that doesn't make it okay. And I'm further frustrated because if we had honored the contracts and followed policy, you're absolutely right, because applying to use this benefit is not a guarantee that you will receive it. So we could have honored the contract, followed the policy, they make the request, the board reviews it, the recommendation is that we don't have the funds to sustain this at this time, and the request could be denied, and in my opinion, everybody's fine. But it's not okay. Where I believe we fell short is if we knew in October we weren't going to continue this practice, it should not have ended up in a contract that was signed in January of the next year. And since it was in the contract, administrators should not, and this is just my opinion, Amy Joyce Levy, administrators should not have been told, oh, we're not doing that. Because then why would I apply to use this benefit that's in my contract? And I appreciate that the people who were approved in February of last year are not being cut off. I think that would be very gross. But these are for contracts starting in June of 2025. They signed contracts that haven't started. So the request would be for use in the upcoming school year. And now that has, in my opinion, has been breached. And so I just wanted to clarify what my concerns are with this. If we had followed the policy, we wouldn't have had a problem.
I don't agree with the word breach, because based on the language in the contract, we are not breaching the term of the contract. And if it was stipulated back in November, which I walked in late to this conversation, that we were pausing this as a result of our budgetary situation, if I'm interpreting this correctly, we would just exert the administrative effort to process something that we are guaranteed we are not going to approve because we don't have the money. To me, that seems a little less sincere than to have told them in November, it is in your contract, it's a multi-year contract, but we're not going to exercise it this February. It's a 2-year contract. Next February could be a different story, and they can exercise that right under their contract at a later time.
Tom Hankins?
I just want to go back to policy meeting when this all came to fruition in my mind, and the spotlight was shown on it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I certainly agree with Board Member Levy. So in my mind, in February of 2024, this policy was in place, and we had 2 administrators take advantage of that. In July, it was suspended because, according to what I hear, the board said that we suspended it. I don't think the board had any knowledge that there was 2 administrators in the pipeline for this. In fact, I know they didn't because I learned that at policy. Nobody knew. And then these 2 administrators who were going on to further education were told, oh, wait, we're not going to pay for that because the board said we can't do this anymore. I think that is where the problem is. And it was a spirit. I'm not saying that there wasn't wiggle room to say we're not going to approve it because it's in that contract. I'm not saying that. The spirit says, our spirit says we will honor what we said we would do, not the legal thing that says we may not because we can't. I don't think this board knew that there was 2 people in the pipeline, and that's, to me, where the crux of the problem is. And I believe, as does Board Member Levy, and I believe, I can't speak for Board Member Nichols, but we are all in the policy together, that we will honor what we said we would do. And when these people signed up in February of 2024 to take extended education.
Thank you, Mr. Hankins. To clarify, the board did approve the 2 in February, so to say that the board did not know is not completely accurate. However, between February and October, the October budget time, there's a lot of time and a lot of things going on, and for us to remember that there were 2 outstanding reimbursements, I don't expect any of us board members to remember, oh, we have that. But it is 7:59, so I will entertain a motion to extend the meeting another 30 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, Jinx, second.
I think I heard Brian Nichols as the motioner and Megan Miller as the seconder.
Let's go with that.
Any questions or comments? Is that a word?
It is now, flexible use of language.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Board Member Miller, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I think my question was answered. I guess the thing that I was confused about was like, why would we have to waive policy if okay, so I'm not alone here. I thought maybe I missed something, but my confusion is if it's in there already that it's not a guarantee, that something needs to be applied for, is it really necessary to waive policy? And the reason I'm asking is that I do believe there absolutely are good occasions, things happen, right, where sometimes you do need to waive policy, but in general, it's not a great practice. I think that there's a lot going on in this conversation. The thing that I want to kind of hyper-focus on is this a necessary step? It's a signed contract. I think Ms. Almaderis just made a great point about, like, things change. I guess I'm just a little lost in why it's necessary to waive the policy.
Dr. Garrison, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. So let me just say this. we're in a budgetary crisis here in the school district of Beloit, and we're looking at all different things. And at times when we have to make certain decisions, we would love to kind of follow every procedure that's in place, policy included. Unfortunately, in this space, I can tell you administration, well, we brought this conversation forward. The board, of course, agreed to suspending, I'm not suspending, one could argue, I'm sorry, not suspending. The board did say that they wanted to pause this opportunity in this current budget. And so we have to make adjustments, naturally. Okay, we have to make adjustments. With that being stated, the board has a decision to make tonight whether or not we want to continue this in this current contracted form, or do we want to suspend until June. I think in the spirit of the conversation, it protects us, the administration believes it protects us from any possible thing that could come from more people wanting to apply and more possible funds that we would have to, kind of work through. I also believe that currently in the state in which we're in, from a financial crisis conversation, we have to just look at, can we afford to do this? Well, one could argue, yes, we probably could, but it's also, we got to look at, is this extra $20,000, $40,000, or even $50,000, if depending on how many people come, right? Could these funds be used somewhere else? And that's a space that I think administration is trying to broach in this conversation. So again, that's the administration's perspective. The board can, of course, keep this in the contract and we move forward, or the board can suspend it and we bring this back at a later time.
May I just ask a quick clarifying follow-up question? Okay, so I think you said, but I want to make sure I'm understanding. Is this just sort of like if we were to suspend policy, is this like an efficiency where it would, am I hearing you correctly that you believe that this is going to save administrative and maybe, everybody's kind of time? Are you trying to like avoid a bottleneck of stuff that goes nowhere, or?
I think it's more of an efficiency space right now. Every year, administrators could decide to go back to school, right? And X amount of credits could be brought to administration for pay at the board level. And in this space right now, we do have administrators that are in school. Some have submitted, as Mrs. Almendarez has stated, some have submitted their payments that was approved in the previous budget that we will honor. In this conversation right now, we're asking to suspend it, to pause any possible new conversations coming and reevaluate this in June. So I don't know how many people will bring it. No one has brought anything to date right now, but this will allow us to say, well, it's suspended, and so that will stop anyone from bringing things to the table right now.
Vice President Nichols?
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we can clear this up. Well, first of all, the administration brought this to the policy committee, and we discussed it at the last policy committee meeting, and that's why it's here tonight. As you stated, both administrators have either been reimbursed or in the process of being reimbursed, correct? So we're done, correct? From last February. Now we're into this February. It's the 18th day of February, no applications, correct? Okay. So, I don't see the issue with suspending it just until June. That gets us through this year. That's what it says on the policy. No, until June 2025, suspending. Okay? So, unless we're a mad rush over the next 10 days, I think it's safe to say that we should suspend it until June and see where we are then. And, the word is out that we paused it, or whatever, however you worded it.
Correct. So well, Mrs. Lee.
So we've already covered. So we've covered the debt, if you will, that we owe. We've already covered that. It's covered for the two employees. Correct. So I don't see. I appreciate everybody's input. I
me personally, I don't see that there's an issue with suspending it until June 2025.
I think Mrs. Levy's space was that since we made the statement that we were going to pause this, that we have violated one could argue, that we have breached the contract conversation, so who would come in that space based off of that? And so I believe that's what Mrs. Levy was mentioning in the part of the conversation. Correct. But I just want to make sure that was the voice.
I can see you and I can hear you.
Board Member Levy?
Thank you so much. I just want to be clear. This has nothing to do with the two administrators that filled out their paperwork in February of 2024. They are fine. We will honor the commitment that we made to them. We are being asked to suspend this policy because we chose not to follow it. Number 4 says every February, a forecast of current administrators' intention to use continuing education credit reimbursement during the next budget year will be performed to anticipate budgetary impacts. It could have been written into the contract between October and January. This is not available during the first year of this contract. It may become available in the second year, and we wouldn't have an issue. But again, I have a problem with giving people the right to apply for something and then telling them you can't use this. So they weren't able, and it's very frustrating to hear that no one has come forward. Well, we told them not to. So why would they put their name on a list when they were told you can't use that? And that's my problem. We're being asked to suspend the policy because we didn't follow the policy.
Thank you. Board Member Hankins?
And I agree wholeheartedly with Mrs. Levy. My problem is, as I look at my board docs, it does not say, and I remember this, June, I'm looking at my, excuse me, Mr. Nichols, I'm looking at mine. It says suspend. It doesn't say anything about June 225, which we agreed to revisit it, and also looking at teachers for continuing education, and so be it. If you look back at our meeting notes, I remember this vividly. But my board docs does not mention June of 2025 of revisiting it.
Any other board members have questions or comments? So, summing this up, for the February 2 employees were good. If we were going to use this, and I understand and appreciate where Board Member Levy is coming from, because it feels like we said, okay, this is going to be part of your contract, but now it's not going to be part of your contract. However, with that said, and today being February 18th, it sounds like we don't have anybody looking for tuition reimbursement for this year. So if my understanding is correct, between now and June or July or whenever this is going to be suspended to, they won't be able to request tuition reimbursement anyway. So I guess my question is then, why are we talking about this?
May I?
Please.
And I could be totally wrong, so I want to leave room for that. But I suspect that no one has come forward because we told them they couldn't use it. So after telling them that, to sit in the meeting and say, well, no one has come forward, so if we suspend it to June, we're not harming anyone because they can't come forward anyway. And then a comment was made in the meeting that if an administrator is seeking an advanced degree, they're going to do that whether they're reimbursed or not. Like, I try to stay out of people's pocketbooks. I don't know what decisions people are making about when they're going to take classes and if they're expecting to take advantage or have the opportunity to take advantage of this benefit. So at this point, I just think we have done a disservice to our administrators, which is very disappointing to me. But again, the root of this is we're being asked to suspend this policy because we didn't follow it. No one came forward, I strongly believe, because we told them they couldn't come forward.
So I believe an alternative could be, I'm sorry. I think an alternative could be, Mrs. Levy, we could wait. We could say, you know, if someone wants to come forward and see what comes of that. I mean, it was paused because in our last conversation, when we paused it, that stood. When we paused the tuition conversation and our previous budget conversation, it stood. So it lasted. We never lifted it because that was part of our budgetary conversations. So a compromise could be, if we wanted to wait, the board could just make that decision and we would just wait. Or the board could decide different possibilities with this. I don't want.
Press star 6 to unmute.
I don't want this to be as if, you know, we don't want to honor contracts of the administration, because we definitely do. But in the budgetary crisis that we're in, I'm saying that again, we had to make some different types of concessions. And I wanted to bring this to the board for a discussion. That's why I came to the policy. And we had to make sure that we try to get this right, because I didn't want that to be something that, you know, could come back in some form of bigger conversation as pertains to our day-to-day operations around this specific contracted conversation.
Dr. Garrison or Mrs. Almendarez, just for clarification, if we do not suspend this and an administrator or administrators came forward and said they would like tuition reimbursement, that comes to the board for a board approval? But
That's correct.
until until February, the next 10 days, if the board would vote on it. Okay, so at that point, I think all of us board members are aware of our current financial situation. I am personally okay leaving this the way it is. It's, you know, an unfortunate situation. But if a board member wants to make a motion, Mr. Nichols?
I got it. I move that we leave policy 223.1 and 223.1 Rule 1 as is, without any change.
Is there a second?
Okay. Okay. Just
Okay,
okay.
okay.
All right.
Is there, anybody have any?
May I?
Please.
True. Yeah.
So the irony of that is we've now violated the policy. Either way, you could catch your pitch and the policy is being violated, because number 4 says every February a forecast of current administrators, all the rest of the words in there. And this is our last meeting for February. So there's no way for us to honor this unless we have a special meeting for this, which I think would be ridiculous, because that's saying, okay, come forward in 3 days if you want to use this, and have all of your documentation that is required in order to get your name on a list to be considered. So if we leave it the way it is, we're violating the policy, or we suspend the policy because we violate it by not following it.
So it's frustrating either way, like you just mentioned. However, we do still have other meetings this month that the board could come back and vote on this if we wanted to. We still have our governance opportunity if that's something that we wanted to do. Mrs. Levy, I agree with you,
Press star
but
6
also
to unmute.
But I also want to make sure that if this is the will of the board, then we move forward and we bring the slate to you all of who wants to possibly bring the credits forward. Now, people are in school right now. They started classes and they can submit those if that's what they choose to do. So it's not as if someone can start school in February. The semester has already started. That's just food for thought.
I am okay with leaving this as is unless a board member would like to make a motion to suspend this. And Mrs. Shope, you had a question?
Not a question. I just was going to ask a couple of short questions for food for thought, because sitting over here just listening to the conversation, what I'm hearing is that somewhere probably in October, the board said as a group, we're going to pull this item from the budget because we don't have the money to support it. So it's a budget cut. So then in November, administration said to the other administrators, we're not going to be able to do this year. So we're not going to be doing a forecast in February to do this. Not arguing whether or not that was the right thing to say or do. Just saying this is the timeline I'm hearing. Then in January, contracts that won't start until July 1 of 2025 were issued, administrators signed them. That forecast for those contracts won't come until next February 2026. So those contracts and that forecast shouldn't play anything in this because they're not part of this current February forecast and this current school year where the budget item, line item was pulled. That's what I'm hearing from all the conversation.
Press star 6 to unmute.
Sure, the February forecast, so I understand what you're saying, Mr. Shope, and I'm gonna address that. The February forecast is for the upcoming year. So it's they want to apply for credit reimbursements for the upcoming school year.
Okay.
As I understand it. Am I off on that thought, Mrs. Almendarez?
Yes, I can understand where Ms.
Yeah,
Shaw is going
correct.
with that, like the language of the contracts that we just signed do not go into effect until well after this meeting. And so technically the contract that prevails is the current contract that we're currently in, which is a one-year contract with our administrators currently.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, everyone. Hearing no motion, I'm going to move on to item 8, the HR Committee Report Employment Recommendations, Exhibit A. Are there any open session questions for this? Are there any closed session questions for this?
Oh, my hand is
I'm
raised for
sorry.
open.
Go
Nope,
ahead.
you're fine. Long night. Just a quick question. Does a leave of absence through the end of the current school year, does that mean that the district expects to either rehire that individual for summer or maybe the 25-26 school year? Am I interpreting that correctly? And I'm just curious, like, is that standard, or would we just treat that as this person is resigning, and then if and when they choose to come back, it would be a rehire? I'm just trying to understand the difference between posting a leave of absence to the end of this current school year.
So the previous term, an employee can request to have a leave of absence for that following term. And they're able to take up to the full amount of time per term. They remain in our system as an active employee on leave of absence. They're not separated from the district and they're not rehired.
Got it. So it's not really a resignation or a retirement. This is a separate case.
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Board Member Miller?
I just have my hand up for a closed session, so I can yield the floor to any other open session questions. I was just going to offer to make the motion for closed.
Okay, are there any other open session questions on Exhibit A? Okay. A motion may be made and a vote taken to convene the Board of Education into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering specific personnel recommendations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there?
Second.
Motion by Megan Miller, seconded by Brian Nichols. Any discussion? Mrs. Schultz, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Megan Miller,
Aye.
Tom Hankins,
Aye.
Brian Anderson,
Aye.
Brian Nichols,
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Greg Schneider,
Aye.
and Tia Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
The Board of Education may reconvene to public session in order to take any action if necessary on items discussed in closed session. Thank you.
Me and Ron or what? Figure.
That's like the most wholesome way to injure yourself.
Might have been like that.
Mine?
Lots of jokes, lots of questions.
Oh, I'm sure.
Be ready.
Yeah, it is. We're good? Okay. We are back in open session. Any other questions on the HR committee report? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Megan Miller, seconded by Brian Nichols. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item is executive session. A motion may be made and a vote taken to convene the Board of Education into closed session pursuant to Section 19.81, Parent 1, Parent B of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to conferring with legal counsel who is rendering oral or written advice, and pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent F of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering the disciplinary data and the investigation of charges against a specific person which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect on the reputation of any person involved in such an investigation, and Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E of the Wisconsin State Statute relative to district property negotiations requiring a closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Amy Levy, seconded by Greg Schneider. Any discussion? Mrs. Schultz, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Greg Schneider,
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Brian Nichols,
Aye.
Brian Anderson,
Aye.
Tom Hankins,
Aye.
Megan Miller,
Aye.
and Tia Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. The Board of Education may reconvene to public session in order to take any action, if necessary, on items discussed in closed session. Otherwise, we will adjourn from closed session. Thank you.